Rational thinkers, I am your strategic observer, Maggie Liu. In the wedding hall of Yong'an Marquis Manor, red candles burned bright and the seats were packed with guests. I, Shenru, wore a 9-tailed phoenix crown, draped in a gold-threaded wedding gown, sitting upright in the bridal chair, waiting for my husband to come exchange vows. But what came wasn't the groom's smiling face. It was a sharp blade pressed against his own throat. Rororo, if you won't let her through that door today, I'll spill my blood right here. Xiao Jingyan's voice wasn't loud, but every word was clear, carrying across the entire wedding hall. The sword in his hand had already drawn a shallow line of blood across his neck. The whole hall fell dead silent. Every pair of eyes skipped past him and turned toward the gates of the Marquis's manor. A woman stood there, dressed all in white, barefaced, swaying in the wind like a white lotus about to be torn apart by a storm. Bairu, Xiao Jingyan's sweetheart, a performer who came up from a brothel. Right now, she stood there with tears in her eyes, looking at Xiao Jingyan with a pitiful, fragile gaze, then turning to me with an expression full of guilt. Xiao Jingyan's eyes were filled with a heartbroken, aching tenderness, the way he looked at her like he was looking at a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. When he turned back to look at me, that tenderness hardened into cold, blunt coercion. Shenro, Raoa has followed me for years without a title or status, suffering so much. I can't let her down. Today I must give her a proper place. As the headmistress of the Marquis Manor, you should have the grace to be accepting. Allow her to enter as a concubine alongside you, and we can have a proper wedding today. Otherwise, I have no choice but to take my own life, to make it up to Raoa, to answer to the world. He said it with such righteous conviction, as if I were some unforgivable jealous shrew if I refused. I wore a 9-tailed phoenix crown on my head and a gold-threaded wedding gown on my body. This wedding gown was sewn stitch by 32 of the finest embroiderers in Jiangnan, taking a full year to complete, worth a fortune beyond measure. The dowry behind me stretched from the gates of the Marquis Manor all the way to the end of Long Street, a full 188 palanquins, gold, silver, jade, antiques, paintings, calligraphy, farmland deeds, property titles, every single piece a testament to 100 years of the Shen family's legacy. I, Shen Ruo, the only daughter of the current Grand Chancellor, had been showered with love and adoration since childhood. And yet here I was, in this wedding hall, being threatened by my own husband with his life, forced to accept a prostitute as my concubine. What an absolute farce. I looked at Xiao Jingyan's face, twisted with what he called deep love, and at that so-called helplessness in his eyes. I suddenly felt that the 3 years I'd spent getting to know him were nothing but a joke. Everyone was watching me. My father, the current Grand Chancellor, stood there with a face dark as iron, his fists clenched tight. My mother had already pressed a handkerchief over her mouth, eyes brimming with tears. Xiao Jingyan's mother, the Dowager Lady of Yong'an Marquis, sat up in the seat of honor, her expression awkward, yet she said nothing. She had clearly turned a blind eye to her own son's nonsense. They all assumed I would nod and give in for the sake of the Shen family's reputation, for the sake of the bigger picture. After all, this was a marriage bestowed by the Emperor himself. How could it be taken lightly? After all, the ceremony was right at hand. Calling off the wedding would be an unbearable disgrace. Xiao Jingyan thought so too. He was certain I loved him deeply, certain I wouldn't dare gamble with the Shen family's name. That is why he dared to act so brazenly. I looked at him and suddenly laughed. In that dead silent wedding hall, my laughter rang out sharp and clear. I raised my hand and straightened the heavy phoenix crown on my head. The eastern pearls on it caught the candlelight, glittering so brilliantly it almost hurt to look at. My red lips parted slightly. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried cleanly into everyone's ears. Then go ahead and die. Xiao Jingyan's expression froze in an instant. He stared at me in disbelief, as if trying to confirm whether he'd heard wrong. I didn't look at him again. I slowly lifted the phoenix crown from my head and set it carefully on the ceremonial tray beside me. This phoenix crown was a grace personally bestowed by Her Majesty the Empress. It couldn't suffer even the slightest damage. Then I straightened up and looked toward the Shen family's head steward. Someone come, take the dowry back. This lady is not getting married. My voice echoed through the wedding hall, like a massive boulder crashing into a still lake, sending waves surging in every direction. Xiao Jingyan was completely stunned. The tenderness and resolve on his face shattered in an instant, leaving nothing but confusion and disbelief. Rororo, what did you just say? The hall full of guests erupted into an uproar. No one had expected that the Shen family's eldest young miss, always gentle and virtuous, would make such a shocking decision, calling off the wedding right there in the hall. This was a slap in the face to the Yong'an Marquis Manor, and an even bigger slap in the face to the Emperor himself. Up on the high seat, the Yong'an Marquis Manor's Grand Dowager could no longer stay seated. She shot to her feet, pointed at me, and snapped sharply. Shenruo, have you lost your mind? On such a joyous day, how dare you make a scene like this? Apologize to Jingyan right now, put your phoenix crown back on, and get ready to bow at the altar. Her tone carried that high and mighty air of command, as if I was still the junior she could push around however she pleased. I looked at her coldly. Grand Dowager, I think you've got it wrong. The one making a scene today isn't me, it is your precious son. The Yong'an Marquis, for the sake of some brothel woman, he threatened to take his own life on his wedding day, throwing the Shen family's dignity to the wind. He is the one who destroyed this marriage with his own hands. I, Shenru, will never marry a fool who can't tell right from wrong, and I sure as hell won't share a husband with some whore. My words, every single one, cut straight to the heart. The old madam's face instantly flushed a deep liver red. She trembled with rage, pointing at me, unable to get a single word out for a long moment. You, how dare you? I stopped paying her any attention. I looked toward the Shen family's guard captain, Shen Zhong. Yes, miss. Shen Zhong led a squad of guards out from the crowd and bowed to me. They were brought by me from the Shen family, and they answered to me alone. Take stock of the dowry and prepare to head back to the manor. Anyone who tries to stop us. I paused, my gaze sweeping over everyone in the Marquis' manor, will be treated as a provocation against the Shen family. Kill without mercy. Yes, Shen Zhong took the order, turned with the guards, and got to work organizing the men to move all 188 loads of dowry. The Marquis Manor's servants and guests all stepped aside, not one of them daring to step forward and interfere. Who in their right mind would dare provoke the dignity of the current Grand Chancellor? Xiao Jingyan finally snapped back to his senses. He dropped the sword in his hand and rushed over to me in a few strides, reaching out to grab my hand. Rororo, stop making a scene. Come back with me to finish the ceremony. His tone carried a frantic edge, along with the kind of command he was used to giving. I already said, I am not marrying you. I stepped aside to dodge his hand, my eyes cold. Xiao Jingyan, from the moment you pointed that sword at yourself, everything between us is finished. Stop making a scene. I let out a cold laugh. You brought a prostitute to our wedding, forced me to accept her as a concubine, and trampled my dignity and the Shen family's honor into the dirt. And now you are saying I am the one making a scene. Xiao Jingyan, you've got some real nerve. His face cycled between pale and green. Roro, I just love Ra too much. I can't live without her. I promise I'll make it up to you. Okay, he was still trying to explain himself, still using that self-righteous logic of his to talk me around. I looked at him and felt nothing but utter disgust. Make it up to me, you are not worthy. I turned and walked toward the exit of the wedding hall. Chinga, my personal handmaid, had already draped a cloak over my shoulders. Shenru, you can't leave. Xiao Jingyan came chasing after me from behind, trying to grab me. Shen Zhong's figure appeared behind me like a ghost, blocking his way. My lord, please conduct yourself with dignity. Get out of my way, Xiao Jingyan roared. But Shen Zhong and the guards behind him didn't budge an inch, standing like a wall. The Marquis Manor's guards also closed in, both sides with blades drawn, the tension ready to explode at any moment. The entire wedding hall descended into chaos. I didn't look back step by step. I walked steadily toward the door. Behind me came the shrill, frantic screaming of the old dowager. Stop her. Don't let her take the dowry. Shenru, this is an Imperial marriage decree. Do you want to defy the Emperor's orders? Defy the Emperor's orders. What a big hat to put on someone. I stopped in my tracks, turned around, and let my gaze rest calmly on the Grand Dowager's flustered, furious face. Grand Dowager, since you brought up the Emperor, I'd almost forgotten. The Emperor's decree was for me, Shenrue, to marry Yong'an Marquis Xiao Jingyan as his principal wife, not for me to come to the Marquis's manor and stand on equal footing with a prostitute while suffering every humiliation imaginable. As for what happened today, I will go to the palace myself and lay it all out before the Emperor and Her Majesty the Empress. Every single detail, exactly how the Yong'an Marquis manor has wronged and humiliated my Shen family. I trust that the Emperor, in his wisdom, will see justice done for my Shen family. My words were neither meek nor overbearing, yet they carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. The Grand Dowager's face went pale in an instant. Only then did she realize I wasn't just venting. If I truly brought today's events before the Emperor word for word, the Yong'an Marquis manor would have no way out, forcing the Grand Chancellor's only daughter and openly taking a prostitute as a side consort right in the main hall. This scandal alone was enough to make the entire Marquis manor the laughingstock of the capital city, and might even bring down the Emperor's furious wrath upon them. She opened her mouth but couldn't get a single word out. Xiao Jingyan was stunned too. He probably never imagined that I, who had always done whatever he wanted, could have such a hard edge to me. Right at that moment, a soft, frail voice rang out. "Sis, please don't blame Brother Jingyan." It was Bai Ru. Somehow, she had already walked into the wedding hall. She knelt on the ground and crawled toward me, wrapping her arms around my leg. Tears rolled down like beads off a broken string. "It is all Rao's fault. It is Rao who had no shame, craving a title she had no right to. You and Brother Jingyan are a perfect match made by heaven. Don't let me come between you. Rao is willing to leave and never see Brother Jingyan again. I only ask that Sis forgive him and see the wedding through properly." She wept like a beauty in the rain, utterly heartbroken. Every word she said rang with sincerity, taking all the blame squarely onto herself. Quite a few guests who saw this showed looks of sympathy. What a pristine white lotus in full bloom. What a move retreating just to advance. If I really let it go today, it would cement my image as an unreasonable, jealous shrew. And she would become the great woman who sacrificed everything for love. Too bad I am no longer the fool from my past life who got played by her every which way. I looked down at Bai Ru clinging to my leg, not a trace of warmth in my eyes. "Let go." She shook her head through her tears. "No, sis, not unless you promise to forgive Brother Jingyan." I said let go. My voice went cold. She kept crying, kept performing. I ran out of patience. I lifted my foot and kicked her away without a shred of mercy. "Ah!" Bai Ru let out a startled cry and crumpled weakly to the ground. Everyone drew a sharp breath. Xiao Jingyan's eyes nearly split with rage. "Shenrue, you dare hurt her?" He rushed over and pulled Bai Ru into his arms, anxiously checking her injuries, that look of tender concern like I'd kicked out his own heart. I looked down at them from above. "First, I am not your sister. Don't go claiming relations out of nowhere. My mother only ever had one daughter. Second, who the hell are you to ask me to forgive him? Third, you dare block my path. You stained my wedding dress. Can you even afford to pay for that?" I pointed at the creases she'd grabbed into the hem of my skirt, my eyes full of disgust. Bai Ru cried even harder in Xiao Jingyan's arms. "Sister, I didn't mean to slap her." I spat out those two words coldly. Chinga stepped forward. "Miss, can't understand me," I said. "Slap her. She stained Mrs. Wedding dress and shows no remorse. She deserves it." Chinga hesitated no more and walked up to Bai Ru. You dare," Xiao Jingyan shielded Bai Ru, glaring furiously at us. "Watch and see if I dare." I looked at him and said, word by word, "Today, this slap, she is taking it whether she likes it or not. Whoever tries to stop it, I'll treat it as if they're the one who hit her." The words had barely fallen when the Shen family guard stepped forward in unison. Clang, the long blade left its sheath. A cold, piercing gleam flashed before everyone's eyes. The entire wedding hall was instantly blanketed by a killing aura. Xiao Jingyan's face went completely pale. He looked at me like he was looking at a total stranger, some kind of monster. The Marquis manor guards behind him gripped their hilts, yet not one dared step forward. The Shen family guards had all been on the battlefield and seen blood. That killing aura was nothing the Marquis manor's household guards could match. The entire wedding hall was wrapped in an eerie silence. Everyone's eyes were fixed on that white lotus cowering on her knees, trembling on the ground, and on my ever-loyal handmaid, Qing'e. You dare lay a finger on her, just try it. Xiao Jingyan barked. All bluster and no backbone, I smiled. Xiao Jingyan, do you still not get it? Today the question isn't whether I dare touch her, it is whether you dare make an enemy of my Shen family for her sake. If you want to find out, the Shen family will see it through to the end. My voice was soft, yet carried an absolute, unquestionable resolve. He was so thoroughly shut down he couldn't get a word out. Make an enemy of the Shen family. Even with 10 times the guts, he wouldn't dare. I stopped looking at him and turned to Qing'e. What are you standing there for? Yes, miss. Qing'e took a deep breath, and all hesitation vanished from her face. She walked up to Bairu and raised her hand. Bairu's eyes went wide with fear, and she instinctively tried in Xiao Jingyan's arms. Jingyan Gege saved me, but it was too late. Smack, a sharp, resounding slap rang out through the entire wedding hall. Qing'e had put every bit of her strength into that slap. 5 clear finger marks instantly rose up on Bairu's face. The blow knocked her head to the side, blood seeping from the corner of her mouth, her whole mind gone blank. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. The guests drew a collective sharp breath. The old madam clutched her chest, looking like she was about to faint. Xiao Jingyan's eyes went red in an instant. Asterisk, asterisk. Number, asterisk, asterisk. He let out a furious roar, shoved Bairu away from his arms, and drove his palm straight down toward the top of Qing'e's head. He actually wanted to kill my personal maidservant. Qing'e was just a frail girl. How could she dodge a rage-fueled strike from a military general? My heart clenched, but the next moment, Shen Zhong's figure had already stepped in front of Qing'e. He simply reached out one hand and effortlessly caught Xiao Jingyan's wrist. My lord, laying such a vicious hand on a woman that is a bit beneath your station. Shen Zhong's voice was steady as a mountain. Xiao Jingyan's wrist was locked in place, unable to move, his face flushing deep red. Let go of me, a mere servant like you dares to lay hands on this lord. Please calm yourself, my lord. Shen Zhong didn't budge. My duty is to protect my young miss and everyone who belongs to her. You, Xiao Jingyan, flew into a rage, his other hand balling into a fist as he swung it straight at Shen Zhong's face. Shen Zhong's eyes went cold, and he applied the slightest pressure with his wrist. There was a sharp crack. Xiao Jingyan let out a muffled groan of pain, his entire arm going limp. His wrist, Shen Zhong had snapped it clean with his bare hand. Ah, my hand! He stumbled back, screaming, cold sweat pouring down his forehead. The Marquis Manor guards saw their master get hurt and drew their blades one after another. The Shen family guards weren't about to back down either, meeting them steel for steel. A bloody fight looked ready to break out right there in the wedding hall. I watched it all with cold eyes, without the slightest intention of stopping any of it. Today I was going to make sure everyone saw. I, Shen Ruo, am not someone you can push around. Right at that razor's edge moment, a steady and commanding shout rang out from the guest seats. Stop! The voice wasn't loud, but it hit like a great bell, sending a jolt through every single person there. The chaos froze in an instant. I turned toward the sound. There was my father Shen Kongan, the current Grand Chancellor, slowly rising from his seat. He had stayed silent this whole time until now. The moment he stood up, the entire weight of the wedding hall seemed to shift onto him. He didn't look at anyone else, only at me, his eyes carrying an emotion I had never seen from him before. Then he spoke, and in his voice there was exhaustion and indulgence. Rururo, let's go home. Father's voice put a period on today's absurd farce. Let's go home. Just 4 simple words, yet the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. They represented Father's stance, that the entire Shen family would be my strongest backing. My nose stung and my eyes grew hot, but I held it in. Today I could not cry. I looked at Father and gave a small nod. Yes, Dad. Father said nothing more and turned to walk out. I followed behind him, with Qing'e and Shen Zhong flanking me on either side, Shen family guards surrounding us. Behind me were all 188 bridal chests untouched, about to be carried back. The entire Yong'an Marquis Manor fell into a dead silence, and no one dared to stop us. Xiao Jingyan clutched his broken wrist, his face deathly pale as he watched my retreating figure. Lips moving without a single word coming out, The Grand Dowager collapsed into her seat at the head of the hall, her face ashen. That white lotus in full bloom still lay on the ground, her eyes filled with fear and resentment. I never looked back, not once. The moment I stepped through the gates of the Marquis Manor, the afternoon sun hit my body a little blinding, yet I felt a lightness I had never known before. In my past life, it was right at this door that I gave in. For the sake of the bigger picture, I had pinched my nose and accepted Bai Ru as a concubine consort. I thought my patience and tolerance could earn me Xiao Jingyan's guilt and respect. But I was wrong. My compromises only made them push further and further. Bai Ru, under the title of secondary consort, wielded the authority of the head wife. Xiao Jingyan treated me with nothing but coldness and exploitation. The two of them worked together, nibbling away at my Shen family's assets bit by bit. And in the end, they even framed my father for treason and colluding with the enemy, bringing about the execution of the entire Shen family. I died in the heavenly prison, subjected to every humiliation imaginable. Only on the verge of death did I finally see that smug smile on Bai Ru's face. She said, "Sister, did you really think Jingyan ever loved you? All he ever loved was the power and wealth of your Shen family. Now that the Shen family has fallen, a stepping stone like you ought to be kicked aside. That bone-deep hatred, I will never forget it for as long as I live. Thank God heaven still has eyes." It gave me another life, sending me back to the very place where it all began. This time around, I will never make the same mistakes again. Yong'an Marquis Manor, Xiao Jingyan, Bai Ru. Everything you owe me, everything you owe my Shen family, I will collect it back, every single debt with interest. Returning to the Shen residence, the front gate slowly closed behind me, shutting out all the noise and prying eyes of the outside world. The moment Mother saw me, her tears came streaming down. She grabbed my hands and choked up, unable to get a word out. "Mom, I am fine." I wrapped my hands around hers and softly reassured her. Father dismissed all the servants, leaving just the three of us in the main hall. "Rororo, tell Father, have you truly made up your mind?" Father looked at me, his expression grave. "Breaking off the engagement today. The Xiao family was in the wrong first, but in the end we've still embarrassed His Majesty. The trouble that follows will come one after another." I met Father's gaze, my eyes steady. "Father, I've made up my mind. I'd rather never marry in this lifetime than marry into a family like that and bring shame upon myself. I know what I did today was a bit rash and may cause trouble for the family. But if I had swallowed it today, that would be dragging the entire Shen family into a pit we'd never climb out of." I took the tragic ending from my past life and told it to Father in a different way. "Father, I had a very long, very painful dream. In the dream I gave in today, but what it got me wasn't mutual respect, it was the Shen family's ruin." Father's pupils suddenly contracted. He was the Grand Chancellor, second only to the Emperor, a man who had weathered countless storms, and he never doubted my words. He was silent for a long time before letting out a long sigh. "Forget it. My daughter, Shen Kongan's daughter, was never meant to suffer this kind of grievance. I'll handle things on His Majesty's end. You just rest easy at home. If the sky falls, Father will hold it up for you." My heart warmed. Having family behind you, it really means everything. "Thank you, Father. But a daughter can't just let her father bear it all alone." I raised my head, a cold glint flashing in my eyes. "Since the Xiao family dares to bully us like this, we can't just sit here and wait to die. Defense is never the best strategy. Taking the initiative is the only way to crush them completely." Father looked at me, a trace of surprise showing in his eyes. He hadn't expected that I, who had always stayed out of worldly affairs, would say something like this. What are you planning?" I closed my eyes, and scenes from my past life flashed rapidly through my mind. I knew many of Xiao Jingyan's secrets, secrets that were enough to ruin him completely. I needed an opening, one that could land a killing blow. "Got it." I snapped my eyes open. "Father, the Xiao family's military power comes from their war merits and the Emperor's trust. But their wealth has dirty origins. I remember a name, Shantong. He is the man behind the scenes at Sihai Money House in Jiangnan, handling all the shady money for the Xiao family, and in his hands there is a secret ledger belonging to the Xiaos." Father said nothing for a long while after I finished speaking. The way he looked at me was full of shock and scrutiny, as if he were seeing me, his daughter. For the very first time, Chan Tong see high money house. He murmured to himself, brow tightly furrowed. How did you come to know about this? That was genuinely hard to explain. It is not like I can say that in my past life, Xiao Jingyan accidentally let it slip while drunk, trying to show off in front of Bairu, and I just happened to overhear it. I could only lower my eyes and say softly, your daughter. Also happened to hear Xiao Jingyan mention it once. I didn't think much of it at the time. But after suffering such a great humiliation today, I started connecting all the details together. This explanation was a bit of a stretch, but father didn't press further. He just gave me a long, deep look and nodded. All right, father understands. This matter don't get involved anymore. Leave it to me to handle. Yes, I knew that with father's methods, as long as he had the lead of Qian Tong, he would definitely get to the bottom of it. Xiao Jingyan, your day of reckoning is not far off. The day after the broken engagement, the entire capital city was in an uproar over the scandal between my Shen family and the Yong'an Marquis manor. All kinds of rumors were spreading like wildfire. Some said I was consumed by jealousy and couldn't stand a frail young woman, which was why I made such a scene at the wedding hall. Some said Xiao Jingyan was deeply devoted, willing to risk his life for true love, a man who followed his heart. But more people were mocking the Yong'an Marquis manor for not knowing what is good for them, daring to humiliate the chief minister's only daughter like that. The gates of my Shen residence were shut tight, turning away all visitors. I, on the other hand, was in my own courtyard, leisurely sipping tea and reading storybooks, as if everything happening in the outside world had nothing to do with me. Xing'e stood to the side, looking a little worried. Miss, the things people are saying outside are really ugly. Aren't you angry? I turned a page of my book without even looking up. Their mouths are on their own faces. They can say whatever they want. What we need to do isn't argue with them, it is make them shut up forever. Xing'e nodded, half understanding. Just then, the steward came rushing in to report, Miss, the Dowager Lady of Yong'an Marquis has arrived. She says she wishes to see you. I set down my book, a cold smile tugging at the corner of my lips. She couldn't sit still that fast. Even more impatient than I'd expected. Let her in, but don't take her to the main hall, have her wait in the side room. Yes. The steward took his leave. Xing'e looked puzzled. Miss, why see her in the side room? Won't that be disrespectful to a guest? I picked up my teacup and gently blew on the steam rising from it. Xing'e, remember this. Good tea is for friends. If a wolf shows up at the door, we don't offer good tea, we don't even let her in. The fact that I am letting her through the door today is already a special favor from our Shen family. I leisurely finished my cup of tea, flipped through a dozen more pages, and only when I figured enough time had passed did I get up and head to the side room. I was going to make her wait, let her understand that the Shen family today is not a place she can just waltz into and see whoever she pleases. When I walked into the side room, the Dowager Lady was sitting in a chair with a look of barely concealed impatience on her face. Seeing me walk in, she immediately put on the airs of a senior, letting out a cold snort. Shenru, you actually know to come out and see me. I thought you were going to make me, your elder, wait until dark. I didn't bother with her sarcastic remarks. I walked straight to the head seat and sat down, then gave her a light sideways glance. What brings the old madam here today? My attitude was distant and cold. My words caught her off guard and her expression turned even uglier. What kind of attitude is that? I am still your elder. She had meant to say mother-in-law, but the words reached her lips and she swallowed them back down. Shenru, I know you were wronged by what happened yesterday, but Jingyan was just confused for a moment, and he already knows he was wrong. I've already had that little fox sent away, and she won't be allowed to set foot in the Marquis Manor ever again. As for you, stop throwing a childish tantrum. Come back to the Marquis Manor with me today. Make up for the wedding ceremony, and we'll put this whole thing behind us. She said all of it so lightly, as if she were bestowing some great favor upon me. I almost laughed out of anger, pinning all the blame on a moment of confusion, and that little fox, then expecting me to act like nothing happened and obediently go back with her. Who did she think she was? The King of Heaven. I picked up the tea the maid had just served and leisurely skimmed the tea leaves off the surface. Grand Matriarch, are you getting on in years and your memory's not so good? Yesterday I thought I made it pretty clear. I am not getting married. Her expression dropped in an instant. Shenru, don't push your luck. Do you really want to make enemies of my Marquis manor over something this small? And turn both families into a laughingstock of the capital city? Do you know that His Majesty was furious about what you did yesterday? I raised my eyes and looked at her. Oh, is that so? Because the way I heard it, His Majesty just rewarded father with a famous painting from the previous dynasty yesterday. I didn't take the bait on her threat about His Majesty's anger. Instead, I shifted the subject, asking in a seemingly offhand way, come to think of it, the Marquis's salary doesn't seem all that high, and just recently, there was that hefty sum to buy out Miss Bairu's contract, plus setting up a separate residence. Grand Matriarch, your Marquis Manor's coffers must really be something. My words were like a needle hitting her right where it hurt. The Grand Matriarch's expression changed instantly. A flash of panic crossed her eyes, and she snapped, what are you babbling about? I smiled and set down my teacup. I'm just talking off the top of my head, but you know how it is, the capital city never runs short of gossip. If word got around about the Marquis Manor embezzling military funds and lining their own pockets, and it reached the censor's ears, then made its way to His Majesty, well, that wouldn't be great. The old madam shot up from her chair, pointing at me, her finger trembling. You dare threaten me? I looked at her, the smile never reaching my eyes. My lady, I am just reminding you, always leave a way out for others, so you can meet again someday. Don't you think? I'd shut her down so completely she couldn't get a single word out, her old face flushing a deep purplish red. Right at that moment, the butler came hurrying back in. This time, his expression was dead serious. He walked up beside me, bowed, and leaned close to my ear. Miss, someone has arrived from the palace. Her Majesty the Empress has sent a verbal decree summoning you to the palace at once. Her Majesty the Empress was summoning me to the palace. The news was like a stone dropped into a lake, stirring up fresh ripples through the side hall. The old madam's expression shifted in an instant, impossible to read. First came shock, then a flash of gloating satisfaction in her eyes. The way she saw it, Her Majesty the Empress summoning me at a moment like this, could only mean she was coming to call me to account. After all, I had broken off the engagement right there in the hall. It wasn't just the Shao family's face I'd slapped. It was the royal family's dignity too. She watched me with a cold smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth, as if she could already picture me getting scolded by the Empress and slinking out of the palace in disgrace. Shenro, you'd better watch yourself. She threw those words down and didn't linger a second longer, turning and sweeping out with her people in tow. The way she acted, it was like she was afraid of getting dragged down with me. I watched her fleeing figure and couldn't help but find it funny. Chinga held my arm with a worried look. Miss, Her Majesty the Empress has summoned you out of nowhere, could it be? I patted her hand to let her know it was fine. If it is a blessing, it is a blessing. If it is trouble, there is no running from it. Go get ready, we're heading to the palace. One incense stick later, I had changed into a simple, elegant palace dress, and guided by the eunuch who had delivered the summons, stepped into Kuning Palace. Inside Kuning Palace, sandalwood incense drifted through the air. Her Majesty the Empress sat upright on the phoenix throne, dressed in a plain yellow robe, her authority radiating without a hint of anger. She did not, as the Grand Matriarch had hoped, come at me with a cold glare the moment I arrived. Instead, after I had paid my respect, she gently offered me a seat. Ruro, rise, have a seat. Thank you, Your Majesty. I sat down as told, but didn't dare let my guard down for even a moment. Her Majesty the Empress was my aunt, and she had watched me grow up. But first and foremost, she was the Empress, a model for all under heaven, with a deep and unfathomable mind, never letting joy or anger show on her face. The gentler she seemed, the more uneasy I felt inside. What happened yesterday, I've heard all about it. Her Majesty the Empress waved her hand and dismissed the attendants on both sides, keeping only her trusted confidante. Nanny Zhang, her gaze settled on me, carrying a hint of scrutiny. Rururo, you are a smart child, always knowing when to advance and when to hold back, always mindful of boundaries. Tell me, why did you do something so impulsive? Do you know how much trouble you've caused your father at court with this scene you made? Here it comes. I took a deep breath, rose from my seat, and knelt down on the ground again. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Rororo knows this act goes against the Imperial grace and puts father in a difficult position, but Rororo has no regrets. Her Majesty the Empress furrowed her brows slightly. Oh, let's hear it then. I raised my head and looked her directly in the eyes, my gaze calm and steady. Your Highness, this marriage was chosen for Rororo by you and His Majesty, and Rororo is deeply grateful from the bottom of her heart. To marry into the Marquis Manor and be a devoted wife and mother, that is Rororo's duty. But the Yong'an Marquis Manor has gone too far. I laid it all out, one by one, exactly as it happened, how Xiao Jingyan had threatened to die right there in the wedding hall, how the Grand Dowager had tacitly allowed and indulged it, and how Bairu had put on her little act. No embellishment, just the facts. But even the bare facts were enough to make one's blood boil. By the time I finished, my voice had cracked with sobs, and my eyes had gone red. It wasn't an act, it was every grievance from my past life. And this one, all surging up into my heart at this moment. Your Majesty, the Shen family is a century-old noble clan, and my father is the chief minister of the court. I, Shen Ruo, am even a county princess personally bestowed by you. Yet in Xiao Jingyan's eyes, I am worth less than a brothel prostitute. He wants me to accept that woman as his concubine and enter his household alongside her. This is not just a slap to my face, Shen Ru's face. This is a slap to the entire Shen family's face, to my father's face, and more importantly to yours and His Majesty's face. He treats the Imperial family's grace like a worn-out shoe, trampling it underfoot. A household like this Ruoru does not dare marry into it, and cannot marry into it. Otherwise, if I give ground today, tomorrow will be a bottomless abyss. By then, Ruoru would not only be unable to protect herself, but would drag the entire clan down with her, becoming the laughingstock of the world. Rather than let it come to that, it is better to make a clean break today, better a sharp, short pain than a long, dull one. If this angers His Majesty and Your Majesty and you wish to punish me for it, Ruro is willing to bear it alone, without a single complaint. When I finished, I kowtowed deeply. The entire hall fell completely silent. Only my firm, resounding voice echoed between the pillars and beams. After a long while, Her Majesty the Empress let out a long, slow sigh. She stepped down from the phoenix throne and helped me up herself. Dear child, get up quickly. I understand now. I understand everything. In her eyes was a look of tender pity, and a complexity I could not quite read. It is I who misjudged Xiao Jingyan. I never imagined he would turn out to be such a worthless scoundrel. You have been wronged. A weight lifted from my chest. I knew I'd made it through this hurdle. Her Majesty the Empress took my hand and had me sit beside her. You did the right thing, a daughter of the Imperial family, the treasured pearl of the Shen family. She must never suffer such a humiliating disgrace. Refusing the marriage was the right call. She paused, then shifted her tone. Even so, this was an Imperial match. After all, it needs to be properly resolved. Your father has already submitted a plea of guilt. His Majesty wishes to hear your thoughts on the matter. Ruroro, how would you like to handle this? So this was the real reason she'd summoned me today. How to resolve it in a way that preserved the Imperial family's face while also letting the Shen family vent this grievance. I looked at Her Majesty the Empress. I already had my answer. Your Majesty, Ruro has only one request. Oh, please ask His Majesty to rescind the decree. And furthermore, I raised my eyes and spoke each word clearly, one by one. Let it be the Shen family who calls off the engagement. Let it be the Shen family who calls off the engagement. The moment those words left my mouth, even Nanny Zhang, who had been standing to the side, visibly shifted her expression. Her Majesty the Empress narrowed her phoenix eyes slightly, watching me. Roro, have you thought this through? A woman who calls off an engagement, it will damage your reputation, no matter what. His Majesty's intention was to find a pretext, say, that Xiao Jingyan has suddenly fallen gravely ill and is unfit for marriage, and have the Imperial family step in to quietly close the matter. That way, it would be the best protection for both you and the Shen family. I shook my head. Thank you for your Majesty's kind intentions, but Ruro doesn't need that kind of protection. A wrong is a wrong. Xiao Jingyan was the one who wronged me first. It was his Marquis' manner that broke its word. Why should I cover for him? If I accept the dignity arranged by the royal family today, how will the outside world see me? They'll only think that Shenro is weak and easy to push around that even when wrong to the heavens. I can only swallow my broken teeth along with the blood. Then where would the Shen family's honor be? My tone was calm and firm. I don't want anything covered up, and I am not afraid of a damaged reputation. What I want is to stand tall and do this out in the open. I want everyone in the capital city to know it is not that Shen Roo couldn't find a husband. It is that Xiao Jingyan is not worthy of marrying me. I want his Marquis manor to carry the name of Oathbreaker forever. Only then can the shame brought upon the Shen family truly be washed clean. Every word landed with weight. Her Majesty the Empress looked at me, a flash of surprise crossing her eyes, but more than that, admiration. She was silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Good, well said. Now this is a daughter of the Shen family backbone and guts. This palace grants it. This palace will personally speak to His Majesty and have it done your way. The Imperial edict annulling the engagement will be delivered to your manor in 3 days. The heavy stone in my heart finally dropped to the ground. Thank you, Your Majesty, for making this possible. Rise, the Empress helped me to my feet. From now on, stop putting yourself through such grievances. Behind you stands not only the Shen family, but also this palace and the entire Imperial family. Yes, I answered softly. I knew that Her Majesty the Empress's words were both a comfort and a declaration of stance. She was telling me that the Imperial family had thrown their full support behind the Shen family. Yong'an Marquis Manor was finished. Coming out of the palace, the sky was already close to dusk. I returned to in the mansion and relayed the Empress's meaning to my father. After hearing it all, father was silent for a long while, just looking at me with an incredibly complicated expression. After a long moment, he finally let out a sigh. Ruro, you've truly grown up. I smiled a little. Growing up wasn't optional. If you didn't grow up, you'd be picked clean without even the bones left. Over the next 2 days, the winds in capital city shifted completely. First came word from the palace that Her Majesty the Empress had been furious over what happened to me the day before, and had smashed her most beloved jade Rui right there in Cunning Palace. Right on the heels of that, over a dozen censors from the censorate **** filed impeachments against Marquis Yong'an Xiao Jingyan for moral misconduct, failure to govern his household, and being unfit to hold the title of Marquis. All manner of salacious gossip about Xiao Jingyan and Bairu also began sprouting up like mushrooms after rain, spreading through the tea houses and taverns all across capital city. The storytellers embellished every detail, painting Xiao Jingyan as a shameless wretch who lost his mind over a prostitute and abandoned his wife and all decency. And I became the wronged woman who endured every humiliation yet refused to break. Public opinion was completely turned on its head. The gates of Yong'an Marquis Manor were shut tight, too afraid to receive any visitors. Word was that Xiao Jingyan flew into a rage inside the manor, smashing all kinds of things. And the old madam fell gravely ill and couldn't get out of bed. On the 3rd day, the Imperial edict annulling the engagement arrived right on schedule. The wording in the Imperial edict was harsh, sharply condemning Xiao Jingyan for lacking the virtue his position demands and conducting himself improperly, and proactively revoking the Imperial marriage decree. At the same time, it offered great comfort to my Shen family, bestowing countless gold, silver, and jewels upon us. Once the Imperial edict came down, this marriage was considered, at least on the surface, completely finished. My Shen family not only came away without any loss of face, we actually earned the sympathy and praise of the entire court. While Yong'an Marquis Manor became the laughingstock of capital city, its reputation utterly ruined. I held that Imperial edict annulling the engagement in my hands, yet felt very little joy inside, because I knew this was only the beginning. The annulment only got my dignity back. What I was going to take back next was the blood debt they owed my Shen family. Just then, Shen Zhong came hurrying in from outside. His expression was grave, and he had a sealed letter in his hand. "Miss, there is news from Jiangnian." My heart skipped a beat. "Speak, our people have tracked down that Chan Tong." "But," Shen Zhong paused, his voice dropping even lower. "But just 1 hour before our people were ready to move, Qian Tong and his entire family, over 30 people, were silenced. Sihai Money House was also burned to the ground, clean as a whistle. My heart sank like a stone. That was fast. The Shao family, they were cutting off the tail to save themselves. What about the ledger? I asked urgently. That ledger was the key evidence to bring down the Shao family. Shen Zhong shook his head. The scene was burned to bare earth. Nothing was found. But he reached into his chest and pulled out a small iron box, charred black by fire. We found this in a hidden compartment in Chen Tong's study. A small iron box burned pitch black, about the size of a palm, slightly heavy in the hand, still carrying the residual heat of the fire. I took the iron box, a bad feeling rising in my chest. The keyhole had been melted shut by the heat, no way to open it with a key. Shen Zhong drew the dagger at his waist and pried at it a few times before the iron box finally came open. Inside, there was no ledger, only a pile of paper reduced to ash, and a small wooden tablet also burned black, but by some luck not completely destroyed. I used my fingertip to gently brush away the ash on top. On the wooden tablet, a single character could faintly be made out, a character written in blood, Crown Princes. My pupils suddenly contracted, and the blood throughout my whole body seemed to freeze in that instant. How could it be? How could it be the Crown Prince? In my past life, I only knew that the Shao family had embezzled a massive fortune, even misappropriating military funds. But I never knew that this matter actually involved the reigning Crown Prince. Crown Prince Zhao Chen is Her Majesty the Empress's legitimate son, and also my cousin in name. He was gentle and kind-hearted, with a long-standing reputation for virtue at court, the universally recognized heir apparent. The Shao family is the Crown Prince's maternal clan. Shao Jingyan's biological aunt is noble consort Shao in the palace, the birth mother of the second prince Zhao Sergio. They and the Crown Prince had always kept out of each other's way, and because of the second prince, there was even a hint of hostility between them. How could the Shao family possibly be connected to the Crown Prince? Is this wooden tablet the clue Chan Tong left behind before he died? Was he telling me that the reason he was silenced wasn't because of the Shao family, but because of the Crown Prince? Or rather, are the Shao family and the Crown Prince actually on the same side? A terrifying thought was growing wildly in my mind. If all the money the Shao family embezzled ultimately flowed into the Eastern Palace, then what does that mean? Is the Crown Prince secretly recruiting troops or raising a private army? Either one would be a monstrous crime, severe enough to shake the very foundation of the nation. I felt a bone-chilling cold surge from the soles of my feet straight up to the top of my head. I came back reborn, only wanting to take revenge on the Shao family and clear the Shen family's name. But I never expected that I'd accidentally uncover such an earth-shattering secret. This matter has already gone far beyond what I can control. I have to tell Father right away. I tightened my grip on the wooden tablet in my hand and turned to head out. "Miss, where are you going?" Xing'er asked hurriedly. "To the front courtyard to find Father." My heart was burning with urgency every moment we delayed. The Shen family was in that much more danger. But just as I ran to the courtyard gate, I crashed headlong into someone. Oof! It was a young man. The collision sent him stumbling, and the scroll in his hand tumbled to the ground. Sorry, I quickly apologized and bent down to help him pick up the scroll. "It is fine. I wasn't watching where I was." The man's voice cut off abruptly the moment he saw my face. I froze too because I recognized him. The second prince, Zhao Sergio. What was he doing here? And of all times, showing up in the inner courtyard of our Shen residence. He was dressed in plain clothes today, handsome and graceful, though his brow carried a melancholy that wouldn't lift. "Shen, Miss Shen," he seemed just as surprised to run into me here. "Greetings, Your Highness the Second Prince." I quickly stood and bowed, slipping the wooden tablet in my hand into my sleeve without letting it show. No need for formalities. Zhao Sergio waved his hand, but his gaze stayed fixed on my face, a complicated look, with sympathy, curiosity, and something else I couldn't quite read. "I heard about what Miss Shen went through a few days ago, and I feel deeply for you. Shao Jingyan was blind, he never deserved you." I kept my head down and said nothing. "I've come unannounced today to pay a visit to Chief Minister Shen. I heard the Chief Minister recently acquired a painting from the previous dynasty. Autumn Mountains. I simply couldn't resist." and came to have a look. What he said sounded perfectly reasonable, but something still felt off to me. My father may be the chief minister, but Zhao Sergio is a prince. Between the two of them, because of noble consort Zhao and the second prince's rivalry for succession, they had always kept their distance. So why would Zhao Sergio choose this moment to come calling on his own initiative? And on top of that, by coming into my inner courtyard, the kind of thing that is easy to misread. Alarm bells went off in my head. I looked at him and suddenly asked, "Your Highness, which way did you come in?" As I recall, the servants here should have shown you to the front hall. He paused for a moment, then smiled gently. "Oh, a servant led me the wrong way. I saw the scenery in this courtyard was rather lovely, so I wandered a few extra steps." That explanation was far too thin. The servants of our Shen residence are well trained. There is no way they'd make such a basic mistake unless he came to find me on purpose. He wanted to see me. Why? Just as my mind was filled with suspicion, Zhao Sergio bent down and picked up the last scroll. He handed the scroll to me with a warm smile on his face. "Miss Shen, this is for you." I instinctively took the scroll. "Your Highness, this..." "Open it and take a look." I hesitated for a moment, then slowly unrolled the scroll. In the painting, there was a woman, dressed in red, wearing the phoenix coronet and red robe, standing in the wedding hall, her gaze resolute and firm. It was a painting of how I looked on the day I called off the wedding. In the lower right corner of the painting, there was also a line of small characters. "The phoenix is reborn, rising anew from the flames." My heart gave a sudden lurch. What did he mean? Why would he paint this? What did those 8 characters, "The phoenix is reborn, rising anew from the flames," represent? Could it be? He knew something. I raised my head and stared at Zhao Sergio in shock. The smile on his face was still warm, but those deep, dark eyes seemed to hide endless secrets within them. He looked at me and, in a voice only the two of us could hear, said softly, "Miss Shen, or perhaps I should call you Aru. The one in the Eastern Palace is no good person. You need to watch yourself." Aru? That name hit me like a thunderclap exploding inside my head. This is my nickname apart from my closest family. There is only one person in the whole world who calls me that. In my past life, the man who broke into the heavenly prison right before I died, handed me a bowl of farewell wine, and spared me from the agony of death by 1,000 cuts. The second prince, Zhao Sergio. In that life, he and I were never close. The impression he always gave me was of a carefree prince who stayed out of worldly affairs and spent his days lost in painting and calligraphy. At court, he was the crown prince's most good-for-nothing younger brother. In the inner palace, he was the least favoured son. Everyone assumed he had long since dropped out of the fight for the throne. It wasn't until the very end, when the crown prince fell and he seized the throne with overwhelming force, that the world finally realized everything he had shown before was just an act. When I died in my past life, he had said one thing to me: "Aro, if there is a next life, I will surely keep you safe." At the time, I took it for nothing more than a dying hallucination, but now I stared at the man before me, my heart pounding wildly. Beneath his warm and gentle smile lay the same depth and sharpness as that new emperor from my past life, identical, without a trace of difference. He was reborn too. That thought made my hands and feet go ice cold, and I nearly couldn't stay on my feet. "Your Highness, watch what you say." I forced myself to stay calm, but my voice carried a tremor that was hard to catch. He watched my reaction, and the amusement in his eyes deepened. "Looks like you've remembered everything." His voice was soft, yet it hit like a sledgehammer, shattering every mask I'd put on. I understood in an instant. He hadn't come today for any autumn mountain painting. He came for me. The Phoenix Nirvana reborn through fire. On the painting wasn't some offhand compliment, it was a probe, an unspoken signal between two people who'd lived again. I drew a deep breath and tightened my grip on the wooden tablet hidden in my sleeve. "Whatever your Highness is trying to say, Ruro doesn't quite follow." I couldn't admit to anything. Until I figured out what he was after, I absolutely could not expose my biggest secret. Zhao Sergio didn't seem surprised by my denial. He just smiled, his gaze dropping to the sleeve I was clutching so tightly. "What is that interesting thing you are holding?" Shantong's whole family was silenced, and the Saihai money house burned to the ground. Do you really think the Shao family has that kind of reach? My heart sank to the bottom. He even knew about Qian Tong. That meant my every move had very likely been under his watch. That realization sent a chill straight through me. The person standing before me wasn't that gentle. Refined second prince, he was a tiger lurking in the shadows, one who had long since marked me as his prey. What exactly do you want, Your Highness? I dropped the act entirely and asked in a cold voice. You and I want the same thing, don't we? Zhao Sergio wiped the smile from his face, his expression turning serious. Aruo, you hate the Shao family, hate them for destroying the entire Shen family. And I hate the Eastern Palace, hate him for driving my royal mother to her death in misery, hate him for cornering me with no way out. The Shao family is nothing but a dog the crown prince keeps outside. If you want revenge, going after just a dog is useless. Only by killing the dog's master can you cut off the problem at the root. His words confirmed the most terrifying suspicion I'd had in my heart. The Shao family really were the crown prince's people. Why should I trust you? I looked at him because of this. Zhao Sergio reached into his chest and pulled out a small, delicate jade pendant. The pendant style was plain and ordinary, but carved on it was a design I knew all too well. A phoenix in flight. This was the Shen family crest. But this jade pendant was not something that belonged to the Shen family. This is a keepsake from my royal mother, Zhao Sergio said softly. My royal mother's surname was Shen. She came from a branch of the Shen family. By seniority, you'd have to call her aunt. I was completely stunned. Noble consort Shao was a member of the Shen family. How could that be? I had never once heard my father or any elder in the family mention this. Surprised, Zhao Sergio looked at me. Because back then my mother was just an unloved, illegitimate daughter, treated as a throwaway by her clan, sent into the palace to pave the way for the Shen family's legitimate daughter, the current empress. Later, the empress successfully gave birth to a legitimate son and secured her position. But my mother, having given birth to me, a prince, became a thorn in certain people's eyes, so she was completely erased from the Shen family's genealogy. The Shen family needed an empress firmly seated in the rear palace, a future crown prince, but they didn't need a second prince who might pose a threat to the crown prince. Zhao Sergio's tone was very calm, like he was telling someone else's story. But I could hear it beneath that calm, what kind of towering, seething hatred was being held down. I understood everything. Why the Shen family fell in my past life. Why my father, who had rendered outstanding service and held great power, was toppled so easily by the crown prince. Turns out it wasn't for any other reason. Simply because my Shen family was the empress's maternal clan, the crown prince's maternal relatives. The biggest stumbling block on the new empress' path to the throne, so we had to be wiped out. And the Shao family was the sharpest blade in the crown prince's hand. I felt the whole world spinning. Turns out from the very beginning, we were all just pieces on a board pawns in the Imperial family's power struggle, pieces that could be sacrificed at any moment. And what about you? I looked at Zhao Sergio. Why are you telling me all this now? You are a chess piece too, aren't you? Aren't you afraid I'll tell the Empress, tell the Crown Prince? Zhao Sergio smiled, and in that smile was a deep sorrow and madness. Go ahead and tell them. See whether they believe you or believe me a son they've long written off as a worthless piece of trash, Aru. I am not telling you this to get your sympathy. I am telling you because we're the same kind of people. We've both been abandoned by our families, by fate. We share the same enemy. He reached his hand out toward me. Join forces with me. I'll help you destroy the Shao family. You help me bring down the Crown Prince together. We'll grind every single one of those people who once looked down on us like dirt under our feet one by one. Zhao Sergio's words were like a devil's whisper circling around in my ears. Join forces with him. Bring down the Crown Prince. This was no different from making a deal with the devil. I stared at the hand he held out, that hand, with its sharp, defined knuckles, long and strong. In my past life, it was this very hand that had overturned the entire court of Great Zhou. I fell silent, and inside me was a struggle unlike anything I'd ever felt before. My head told me I should refuse him on the spot and stay as far away from him as possible. Getting involved in the fight for the throne, one wrong step and there'd be no coming back. But emotionally, that towering, all-consuming hatred kept screaming inside me. He was right. Just destroying one Xiao family wasn't nearly enough. As long as the Crown Prince is still around, as long as the Empress is still around, the Shen family will always be a thorn in their eyes. Today it can be the Xiao family, tomorrow it'll be the Lai family, the Wang family. If I want to truly settle this once and for all, if I want to truly protect my family, the only way is to drag that high and mighty Crown Prince down from his pedestal and make sure he never gets back up. I raised my head and met Zhao Sergio's deep, piercing gaze. How can I be sure that after it is done you won't become the next Crown Prince? That the Shen family won't end up as just another stepping stone on your way to the throne? That was what I cared about most. I didn't want to jump out of the tiger's mouth just to walk into the wolf's den. Zhao Sergio seemed to have seen this question coming a long time ago. He pulled his hand back and smiled calmly. I can't guarantee that because no one can say for certain what the future holds. But I can make you a promise. First, once the Crown Prince is brought down, the Xiao family is yours to deal with however you see fit. Second, you and I are equal allies working together. I won't give orders to you or to the Shen family. Third, he paused, his gaze burning as he looked at me. If I become emperor, you become empress. This world, we share it together. My heart skipped a beat. What did he just say? If I become emperor, you become empress. What kind of outrageous thing was that to say? I stared at him, almost convinced I'd heard wrong. Your Highness, you can eat the wrong food, but you can't just say whatever you want. I am not just saying whatever I want. Zhao Sergio's expression was dead serious. Aro, what I owed you in our past life, I will repay double in this one. I don't just want to keep you safe, I want to give you the most honored glory a woman in this world can ever have. His words hit me so hard I couldn't get a single word out for a long time. I never imagined that this second prince, who seemed so indifferent to the world, was hiding such ambition in his heart, and feelings number impossible. In our past life, we had no connection at all. At most, he felt sorry for me. That is it. What he is saying now is nothing more than a way to win me over, to win over the Shen family behind me. It is political maneuvering. It is the scheming of a man who wants the throne. I force myself to calm down. I can't let his sweet talk get to me. Your Highness's promises are far too distant. I only care about what is in front of me right now. I am open to working together, but I have conditions. Go ahead. First, I want to know all of your plans. I am not your pawn, I have the right to know everything. Second, in the process of bringing down the Crown Prince, you must guarantee the safety of my father and my family. Third, the Xiao family, I have to be the one to deal with them personally. Zhao Sergio listened to the end and nodded without a moment's hesitation. All right, I promise you. From this moment on, you and I are allies. He reached his hand out toward me again. This time, I didn't hesitate anymore. I reached out and gave his hand a light grip. The instant our hands touched, I felt like I could see a massive net slowly spreading open, draping itself over the entire capital city. After seeing Zhao Sergio off, I went straight to my father's study. I placed the wooden tablet from my sleeve, along with the painting Zhao Sergio had given me, on father's desk. I didn't hide Zhao Sergio's rebirth, nor did I hide the conversations and agreement between us. Because I knew that to bring down the Crown Prince, just the two of us, me and Zhao Sergio, was nowhere near enough. I needed father's strength, needed the entire Shen family's strength. After father finished listening to my account, he fell into a long silence. He picked up the wooden tablet with Crown Prince written on it, ran his fingers over it for a long while, then unfolded the painting and stared at the 8 characters on it. The Phoenix Nirvana, reborn through fire. His expression was frighteningly dark. After a long time, he finally slowly opened his mouth, his voice hoarse. The Imperial family. What a fine Imperial family. I, Shen Kongan, have devoted myself body and soul for 30 years, all for the country and the people. And in the end, I was nothing more than a dog kept by their Imperial family, one they could slaughter and cook up whenever they pleased. I could feel the immense grief and resentment in father's heart. Dad, he waved his hand, signaling me not to say anything more. He closed his eyes and leaned back against the chair. As if he had aged 10 years in an instant, the entire study was deathly quiet. I stood to the side, not daring to disturb him. I knew he needed time to digest all of this and to make a decision that could change the fate of the Shen family and the fate of all of Great Zhou. I don't know how much time passed before father suddenly snapped his eyes open. Those usually gentle and refined eyes at this moment were blazing with a terrifying sharp light. Rororo, here. You tell the second prince whatever he wants. Our Shen family will give him. The crown prince's seat, our Shen family will help him take it. But father looked at me and said, word by word, once it is done, I want him to swear an oath that for as long as he lives, he will never betray our Shen family, and even more so, never betray. You, father's decision was within my expectations. He was not a man who would let himself be slaughtered without a fight. Once he realized that the Shen family's loyalty couldn't earn the Imperial family's trust, and would instead bring a death sentence down on them, he would choose to strike back without a moment's hesitation, supporting the second prince, bringing down the crown prince. It was the only way out, and also the most dangerous path. From this moment on, our Shen family had officially stepped onto the point of no return that was the struggle for succession. Father, don't worry, your daughter knows what to do. I kept father's words close to my heart. Over the next few days, Zhao Sergio and I began making frequent contact through a secret channel. We exchanged the intelligence each of us had in hand and worked together to map out the next steps of our plan. Zhao Sergio's intelligence network was far more vast and covert than I had imagined. He had not only found out that the ones who silenced Qian Tong's entire family back then were the Crown Prince's most elite shadow operatives. The shadow guards, he had also followed the trail and uncovered that the Crown Prince had secret correspondence with the Borderlands' Great General, General Li He of the North. This discovery gave us all a jolt. General Li He, Pacifier of the North, commands 300,000 troops on the northern frontier, the northern shield of Great Zhou. If he were to collude with the Crown Prince, the consequences would be unthinkable. And I, drawing on memories from my past life, fed Zhao Sergio a great deal of information that seemed trivial but was actually crucial. For instance, the Crown Prince has a secret private treasury hidden in a Taoist temple outside the city. A certain steward in the Eastern Palace is a spy planted, number Sivimbai, his second uncle. Also, next month the Jiangnan region will flood, and the Crown Prince will definitely seize the chance to send his trusted men there under the banner of disaster relief to rake in a fortune. Our intelligence complemented each other perfectly. A net aimed at the Crown Prince was being woven in silence. The first target we settled on was not the Crown Prince himself, but the sharpest blade in his hand, the Marquis of Yong'an, Xiao Jingyan. Only by clipping his wings first could we strike at the root, and when it came to dealing with Xiao Jingyan, the best opening was that deeply devoted sweetheart of his Bairu that day. I sent Qing'er to the most famous jewelry shop in the capital city, Treasure Pavilion, to let word get out. The story was that I, Shen Ruo, was in low spirits over the broken engagement and was putting up for sale a golden step shake gifted to me by Her Majesty the Empress. But the buyer had to be someone in love. The moment the news broke, it caused quite a stir throughout the capital city. A gift bestowed by the Empress herself, so precious, and I am supposed to sell it. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind, but more people were just watching Xiao Jingyan make a fool of himself. Seeing just how far he'd pushed me, the news quickly reached the Yong'an Marquis Manor. At the time, Xiao Jingyan had been impeached by a censor and reprimanded by the emperor, and was being punished by staying home in confinement to reflect on his mistakes. How he reacted when he heard about it, I had no way of knowing, but I knew there was one person who definitely wouldn't be able to sit still. That was Bairu. Sure enough, the following afternoon, a slender woman wearing a veiled hat appeared at the treasure pavilion. She didn't draw any attention, just went straight to the shopkeeper and said she wanted to buy that gold hairpin. The shopkeeper, following my instructions, told her, "Miss, my lady says this hairpin is only to be sold to someone truly in love. If you wish to buy it, you'll need to prove that the one in your heart feels just as deeply for you." The woman was silent for a moment, then drew something from her sleeve, a military merit medal with the character Yan engraved on it, which was none other than Xiao Jingyan's personal belonging. "Is this enough?" The woman's voice was soft and delicate. The shopkeeper examined it and nodded. "It is enough. The hairpin is 3,000 taels of silver." The woman seemed caught off guard by the price and hesitated for a moment. But in the end, she gritted her teeth and handed over the banknote. She took the gold hairpin as though it were a priceless treasure and hurried away. In a private room at Zhenbao Pavilion, I watched her retreating figure through the window, a cold smile creeping onto the corner of my lips. Bairu, oh Bairu, do you think what you bought was my humiliation, your victory? No, what you bought was the curse that'll send you on your way. I turned my head and looked at Zhao Sergio beside me. He was dressed in casual clothes again today, leisurely sipping his tea. Is everything arranged? I asked. Lax. He set down his teacup, a cold gleam flashing in his eyes. The bait is ready. We just have to wait for the fish to bite. 3 days later, the capital city censorate suddenly received an anonymous tip-off letter. The letter laid out in detail the evidence against Marquis Zhongyan Xiao Jingyan embezzling military funds and engaging in corrupt dealings. And the most critical piece of evidence was that military merit medal engraved with the character Yan. The letter claimed that Xiao Jingyan had used this medal, a symbol of a soldier's honor, as a token to bribe wealthy merchants in Jiangnan, exchanging it for a massive fortune. And this medal was now in the hands of a brothel woman named Bairu. The moment the news broke, the entire court was in an uproar. The censorate immediately dispatched people to the villa where Bairu was staying, catching her red-handed with the evidence. In Bairu's jewelry box, they not only found that military merit medal, but also unexpectedly turned up something else. A hairpin identical in every way to my golden step shake. The only difference was that this hairpin was made not of gold, but of copper, of fake. Things were getting interesting. A military merit medal representing a soldier's honor, a gold step shake gifted by the Empress herself, and a crudely made copper counterfeit. These 3 items showing up together in a brothel girl's jewelry box was, in itself, a deeply dramatic thing. The officials of the censorate were over the moon. They immediately took Bairu, along with these pieces of evidence, back to the censorate for interrogation. Word spread, and the entire capital city erupted once again. If the earlier broken engagement scandal had only stayed at the level of moral failing, then this military merit medal bribery incident had shot straight up to the level of national law and military discipline. Embezzling military funds, engaging in private dealings in any dynasty, these were crimes serious enough to ruin a military general's name and reputation, or even bring destruction upon his entire family. The Yong'an Marquis Manor had this time truly gotten itself into serious trouble. I sat in the mansion, listening to the news coming in from outside, feeling calm. All of this was within the plan that Zhao Sergio and I had laid out. That anonymous tip-off letter was naturally Zhao Sergio's handiwork, and that copper counterfeit step-shake was something I had specifically asked the craftsman at Zhenbao Pavilion to make overnight, then quietly slipped into Bairu's jewelry box. I knew Bairu too well. She is vain, greedy, and deeply insecure. 3,000 taels of silver to her. That is a fortune. She bought the real gold hairpin to show me up, to satisfy her own obsession with possession, but she'd never bring herself to wear something that valuable so carelessly. She'd definitely find a skilled craftsman to make a fake replica, something to wear and show off day to day. And that is exactly where we have our opening. When the real and the fake hairpins appear before everyone at the same time, one an Imperial gift from the Empress, priceless, the other pulled from a brothel girl's jewelry box, cheap and shoddy. Add in that military medal that had no business being there, and the story tells itself, a greedy general trading a soldier's honor and the nation's money to win favor with an even greedier whore, vivid as life laid out right in front of the world. That kind of story stirs people up more than any direct evidence ever could. It cuts deeper. Miss, you are absolutely brilliant, Chinga said, eyes full of admiration, peeling grapes for me one by one. Everyone outside is cursing Bairu, now calling her a wicked temptress who is ruining the country. Not only did she bewitch the Marquis, she had the nerve to copy an Imperial gift for herself. People are saying she deserves to die for it. I smiled and took the grape she handed me. She is no femme fatale, she is just a stupid woman. A stupid woman who got spun around by a few sweet words from a man and thought she was some kind of chosen one. The real schemer is the man hiding behind the curtain. The one who pushed her out to take the hit for him. Any movement over at the Marquis Manor? I asked. Reporting to Miss. The Marquis Manor's gates are shut tight. Word is the old madam got so worked up she passed out again. What about Xiao Jingyan? Is he still locked up in self-reflection? Yes. Chinga paused, a satisfied look spreading across her face. But word is he has been throwing a massive fit inside the manor, smashed the courtyard where Bairu used to live to pieces, and even swore he'd tear Bairu limb from limb. The cold smile at the corner of my lips grew even colder. See, that is a man's love for you, cheap as dirt, laughable as ever. Just a few days ago, he was ready to throw his life away for her, willing to make an enemy of our Shen family. Today, the moment she became a threat to his future and his life, he tossed her aside like a worn-out shoe, couldn't wait to grind her to dust and scatter her ashes, just to prove his innocence. Xiao Jingyan, you truly have never once let me down. I was still lost in thought when the steward came hurrying in. Miss, someone from the palace has come again, this time. It is head eunuch Wang, the one who serves right beside the emperor. He came in person. He is conveying the emperor's verbal decree, summoning you and the master to enter the palace immediately for an audience. I exchanged a glance with my father, and we both understood without a word. The show is about to officially begin. Inside the Imperial study, the atmosphere was so oppressive it was hard to breathe. His Majesty sat upright upon the dragon throne, his expression dark as still water, holding a memorial from the censorate in his hand, not saying a word. My father and I knelt side by side below. To our left knelt the censораte's Grand Secretary, trembling with fear, and to our right knelt the Marquis of Yong'an, Xiao Jingyan, his face ashen as death. He was held by 2 Imperial guards, the Marquis's coronet long since stripped from his head, his hair hanging loose and dishevelled in a wretched state. His wrists were wrapped in thick bandages. Clearly, he'd been dragged straight from the Marquis manor and escorted into the palace. Shen Kongan. After a long silence, His Majesty finally spoke slowly, his voice betraying neither pleasure nor anger. Yes, this subject is here. Father answered in a low, steady voice. This memorial, what do you make of it? His Majesty tossed the memorial in his hand down. Eunuch Wang hurried forward, picked up the memorial, and presented it before my father. Father unfolded the memorial, skimmed through it in one pass, then handed it to me. I took it and pretended to read it over. What was written on it was nothing more than the censorate's preliminary investigation findings on the military merit medal bribery. Case the wording earnest and sincere, requesting His Majesty to conduct a thorough investigation to uphold military discipline and rectify the law of the land. In reply to Your Majesty, Father kowtowed and said, Your subject believes that every word reported by the censorate is true. The Marquis of Yong'an, as a senior court official holding military power, should have led by example and strictly upheld military discipline. Yet he has embezzled military funds, engaged in private dealings, and even used military merit medals, symbols of a soldier's honor, as bribes. This is a disgrace to his ancestors and a disgrace to the Emperor's grace. Your subject implores His Majesty to investigate clearly and punish him without leniency. Father's words were firm and resounding, leaving no room for mercy. Xiao Jingyan snapped his head up, his eyes filled with disbelief. Grand Preceptor Shen, you are making wild accusations. When did I ever embezzle military funds? When did I ever engage in private dealings? That military merit medal was clearly planted on me by someone trying to frame me. His voice was hoarse, laced with desperate fury. Framed, Father let out a cold laugh. Then why don't you explain why did your military merit medal turn up in a brothel woman's jewelry box? Don't tell me it grew legs and walked over there on its own. I was set up. That woman, she must have been paid off by someone to come after me on purpose. Xiao Jingyan was sweating all over in a panic, his words a jumbled mess. Set up. I finally spoke, my voice cool and detached. Lord Xiao, you really do forget things easily. Back in the wedding hall that day, didn't you say Bairu was the love of your life, that you'd marry no one but her? How is it that today she has suddenly become a spy who is out to harm you? You sure do change your tune fast. My words were like a sharp blade, driving hard into Xiao Jingyan's chest. Number, asterisk. The color drained from his face in an instant. I was confused for a moment. She bewitched me, Shenru. Don't kick me while I am down. Kick you while you are down. I laughed so hard, I was almost in tears. Xiao Jingyan, do you still remember what you did to me back then? You made me accept a brothel woman as a concubine in front of a hall full of guests to share a husband with her. You made the Shen family lose all face, made us the laughingstock of the world. Now all I am doing is letting you have a taste of what it feels like to be humiliated. This is called karma. Every word I spoke was like a poison-tipped arrow shot straight at Xiao Jingyan. He opened his mouth wanting to argue back, only to find he had nothing to say. Enough. His Majesty slammed his hand down on the Imperial desk, rattling the entire royal study 3 times over. Xiao Jingyan, you hold the title of Marquis Yong'an. You have long enjoyed the grace of this nation, and you should have been loyal to your sovereign and upright in your conduct. Yet now you have failed in virtue, taken bribes, and broken the law. You have truly disappointed us to the extreme. Your Majesty, I have been wronged. My loyalty to Great Zhou and to your Majesty is as clear as the sun and moon. I truly did not embezzle the military funds, nor did I engage in any under-the-table dealings. Please, your Majesty, look into this carefully. Xiao Jingyan kowtowed desperately, knocking his forehead against the ground until it bled. His Majesty looked at him, a flicker of complicated emotion crossing his eyes. After all, the Xiao family were descendants of the founding heroes, and Xiao Jingyan himself had once rendered distinguished service for Great Zhou. If the evidence weren't so solid, His Majesty wouldn't have wanted to so easily destroy a marquis like this. Eunuch Wang, this servant is here. Go bring Bairu up here. Yes, before long, Bairu was escorted in by 2 palace maids, one on each side holding her up. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes in disarray, and her face bore the marks left by torture during interrogation. She looked utterly wretched. The moment she saw Xiao Jingyan, she grabbed onto him like a lifeline, struggling desperately, trying to throw herself at him. My lord, save me. I've been wronged. I don't know anything, my lord. You have to believe me. Xiao Jingyan looked at her, a flash of disgust crossing his eyes, and turned his head away. Bairu froze, the light in her eyes fading out little by little. My lord, why won't you look at me? Didn't you say you'd protect me for the rest of my life? Didn't you say I was the love of your life? Her voice was choked with tears, filled with despair. Xiao Jingyan gritted his teeth and said nothing. The emperor watched the scene with cold eyes and said flatly, Bairu, we ask you, where did that military merit medal in your jewelry box come from? Bairu trembled all over and said through tears, It was the Marquis who gave it to me. He said it was his most precious thing, and that giving it to me was his way of showing me how he felt about me. Nonsense. Xiao Jingyan snapped his head up and roared, When did I ever give you a military merit medal? You asterisk, asterisk. Number, asterisk, asterisk. You are slandering me. Bairu was shaking all over from his roar, but she still cried and said, My lord, how can you say that? That military merit medal, you gave it to me with your own hands. You even said that once you married the Shen family's young lady, you would bring me into the manor and make me your side consort. Enough. Shut your mouth. Xiao Jingyan's eyes were red, like they were about to bleed. Someone come slap her mouth shut. This asterisk, asterisk, number, asterisk, asterisk. She is lying, she is framing me. The emperor watched the scene, a flash of mockery crossing his eyes. Xiao Jingyan, what else do you have to say for yourself? Xiao Jingyan knelt on the ground, his whole body trembling. He knew he was finished. Even if he truly hadn't embezzled the military funds, even if he truly hadn't been involved in any under-the-table dealings, as long as that military merit medal had ended up in Bairu's hands, he had no way to defend himself. What is more, he did, in fact, give that military medal to Bairu. It was on a dark and stormy night. He'd had too much to drink, was completely bewitched by Bairu's tender charms, and on a moment's impulse, gave her that medal representing honor as a token of his love. He thought it was a small thing. He thought no one would ever find out. But what he never could have imagined was that this military medal would become the last straw that broke him. I have nothing to say. Xiao Jingyan closed his eyes and accepted his fate. His Majesty took a deep breath and said in a heavy voice, Xiao Jingyan, in consideration of your ancestors' merits, we shall not take your life. But while the death penalty may be waived, living punishment cannot be escaped. Effective immediately, your title of Marquis Yong'an is stripped. All your military posts are removed, and you are to be exiled to the frontier, never to be reinstated. The Shao family is to be reduced to commoners, barred from holding office for generations." With those words, the Shao family was cast into an abyss of no return. Shao Jingyan collapsed to the ground, his eyes filled with despair. And yet I felt it still wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. I stepped forward and knelt down. "Your Majesty, this subject's daughter has one more matter to report." "Oh, go ahead." I reached into my sleeve and produced that wooden tablet charred black by fire and presented it with both hands. This subject's daughter happened to learn that the money the Shao family embezzled was not all spent on their own indulgences. A portion of it flowed to the Eastern Palace. The moment those words left her mouth, the entire Imperial study fell dead silent. His Majesty's expression shifted drastically. "What did you say?" "It flowed to the Eastern Palace." His Majesty shot up from the dragon throne. His fierce eyes locked hard onto me. That gaze was almost tangible, as if it could see straight through me. I kept my head down, not daring to meet his eyes, but my hand gripped that wooden tablet tight, and my voice was unwavering. This subject's daughter would not dare speak recklessly. But this wooden tablet was found by my people among the belongings left behind by Qin Jiangnan. On it are written 2 characters. Crown Prince Qian Tong was the Shao family's bookkeeper, tasked specifically with handling their dirty money. That he left this tablet before his death. He must have wanted the world to know that behind the Shao family, there is an even greater backer. I presented the wooden tablet to Eunuch Wang with both hands respectfully. Eunuch Wang took it and carefully passed it up to His Majesty. His Majesty held the tablet and examined it closely, his expression growing darker by the second. "The Crown Prince," he muttered to himself, a tangle of emotions flickering through his eyes, shock, fury, and a trace of disappointment that was hard to miss. "Shenru, do you have any idea what kind of crime it is to falsely accuse the heir apparent?" His Majesty's voice was cold as ice. My heart skipped a beat, but I still steeled myself and said, "Your subject knows, but every word your subject has spoken is the truth, not a single word is false. If your Majesty does not believe it, you are welcome to send someone to investigate thoroughly. Your subject is willing to stake her life on it. If even half a word is false, your subject is willing to accept death." When I finished speaking, I kowtowed heavily. His Majesty looked at me and said nothing for a long time. The entire Imperial study was deathly quiet, with nothing but the sound of everyone's heavy breathing. Xiao Jingyan collapsed on the floor, a flicker of hope flashing through his eyes. He seemed to think that as long as he could drag the Crown Prince down with him, he might still have a slim chance of survival. But what he didn't know was that this slim hope of his was precisely the final death warrant that Zhao Sergio and I had prepared for him. "Summon come," His Majesty finally spoke. "Where lay our decree summon the Crown Prince to the palace immediately for an audience?" "Yes." Eunuch Wang received the order and left. The time that followed seemed to drag on especially long. I knelt on the ground, yet my mind was racing through every possible scenario that might unfold next. The Crown Prince was no fool. Since they had dared to collude with the Shao family, they must have long since made thorough preparations for every contingency. Trying to bring them down with just a wooden tablet alone was nearly impossible. But what I wanted wasn't a single killing blow. What I wanted was to plant a seed of doubt in His Majesty's heart. As long as this seed is planted, sooner or later it will take root and sprout, grow into a towering tree, and completely crush the Crown Prince. Before long, Crown Prince Zhao Chen came rushing to the Imperial study. He was dressed today in a bright yellow Crown Prince's casual robe, his features handsome, his bearing exceptional. The moment he stepped through the door, he bowed respectfully to His Majesty. "This son greets Father Emperor. I wonder what instructions Father Emperor has summoned this son for." His tone was gentle and deferential without the slightest trace of panic. His Majesty said nothing, only tossed that wooden tablet in front of him. "See for yourself." The Crown Prince froze for a moment, then bent down to pick up the wooden tablet. When he made out the characters on it, his expression shifted ever so slightly, but very quickly he composed himself again. "Father Emperor, this is... Shen Ruo says this was found among Qian Tong's belongings." Qian Tong was the Shao family's bookkeeper, specifically handling the Shao family's dirty money. Before he died, He left behind this wooden tablet with the 2 characters Crown Princes written on it. Shenro suspects that a portion of the money the Xiao family embezzled found its way to your Eastern Palace. His Majesty spoke word by word, clear and deliberate. The Crown Prince listened to the end, fell silent for a moment, then raised his head and looked at me. That gaze was gentle yet carried a hint of sharpness, as if he wanted to see right through me. Miss Shen, do you have any evidence? I met his gaze, neither servile nor overbearing. The wooden tablet is the evidence. Concluding that the Xiao family has colluded with my Eastern Palace based solely on one wooden tablet, isn't that a bit too hasty? The Crown Prince smiled, his tone still gentle. This wooden tablet only has the 2 characters Crown Prince on it, with no other information whatsoever. It could refer to me, or it could refer to anyone or anything connected to the words Crown Prince. For instance, Crown Prince Manor, Crown Prince Street, or even Crown Prince Tower. Miss Shen, pinning the label of colluding with the Xiao family on me based on just those 2 characters, isn't that a little too presumptuous? His words were airtight, the logic ironclad. I quietly admired him, inwardly worthy of someone who had claimed the position of Crown Prince in my past life and had nearly become emperor. That level of wit and eloquence was truly extraordinary. But I wasn't a pushover either. Your Highness, the Crown Prince makes a fair point. One wooden tablet alone is indeed insufficient to convict anyone, but this subject's daughter would like to ask Your Highness if you and the Xiao family are truly clean and have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Then why did Shentong leave behind this tablet bearing the words Crown Prince right before his death? What was he trying to tell the world? Who was he trying to point the finger at? I pressed forward step by step, giving him no room to breathe. Perhaps he simply wanted to frame me, wanted to drag me down with him right before he died. The Crown Prince was still smiling, but that smile had gone a little cold. After all, I am the Crown Prince, the future Emperor. If someone could bring me down, the benefits for certain people would be considerable. His words were an obvious hint that me and the Shen family behind me were using this as an opportunity to frame him. The Emperor's brow furrowed deeply upon hearing this. He looked at me, then at the Crown Prince, and for a moment didn't know who to believe. Just then Xiao Jingyan, who had been kneeling on the ground the whole time, suddenly spoke up. Your Majesty, this subject has something to say. Everyone's gaze fell on him. Xiao Jingyan struggled to lift his head, a frantic light flickering in his eyes. Your Majesty, this subject did embezzle the military pay and did misappropriate public funds, but this money wasn't embezzled by this subject alone, it was His Highness the Crown Prince who told this subject to do it. The moment those words came out, the entire Imperial study fell into dead silence once again. The Crown Prince's expression finally changed. You are talking nonsense. The Crown Prince spun around sharply, pointed at Xiao Jingyan, and snapped. Xiao Jingyan, don't you dare spew such slander. When did I ever tell you to embezzle the military pay? You are framing me. But Xiao Jingyan looked like he'd thrown all caution to the wind and burst into wild, frenzied laughter. Ha ha ha, slander, Crown Prince. Are you trying to burn your bridges and toss aside those who've served their purpose? Back then, who was it that sent someone to find me, saying they needed my help raising silver, claiming it was for a great undertaking? Who was it that promised me the title of Grand General of the nation once things were done? And who was it that, after I got into trouble, sent people to wipe out Qiantong's entire family, trying to destroy the evidence? Every word he spoke was like a asterisk, number, asterisk, exploding through the Imperial study. His Majesty's expression grew darker and darker. Xiao Jingyan, do you have proof? Proof, every last bit of proof was burned clean by the Crown Prince's people. But I remember every single account, every single transaction. I can lay it all out. Every last detail. Flames of hatred flickered in Xiao Jingyan's eyes. He knew he was finished. If that was how it was going to be, he might as well drag the Crown Prince down to hell with him. 3 years ago, the Crown Prince sent Lian, the steward of the Eastern Palace, to find me. He said he needed my help raising 500,000 taels of silver. I asked what it was for, and he said it was to secretly keep a private army in the borderlands. I didn't dare agree at the time, but Lian said it was the Crown Prince's will. and that if I refused it would go badly for me. I had no choice but to comply. 2 years ago, the Crown Prince demanded another 300,000 taels. Last year, another 200,000 taels. All of this money, Your Majesty, was embezzled by this official from military pay, then transferred through Qian Tong into the Eastern Palace's secret account. This official had thought that as long as I helped the Crown Prince get things done, once the Crown Prince ascended the throne, I would rise to glory. But who could have known the moment I ran into trouble? The Crown Prince turned his back on me and even wanted to silence me for good. If that is how it is, then this official has no reason to live. Either we'll all go down together. Xiao Jingyan finished speaking and suddenly yanked a dagger from his waist, moving to drag it across his own throat. How dare you! The Emperor let out a furious roar, and 2 Imperial guards immediately rushed forward. Wrenching the dagger from his hand, Xiao Jingyan was pinned to the ground, yet he was still laughing like a madman. Ha ha ha, Crown Prince, Your Highness. Do you really think that killing this official will bury the truth? Impossible. Heaven's net is vast, nothing slips through. Everything you've done will be exposed sooner or later. The Crown Prince's face had gone white as paper. He stared at Xiao Jingyan, a flash of murderous intent crossing his eyes. But quickly he forced it back down. He turned and dropped to his knees before the Emperor. Imperial father, your son has been wronged. Xiao Jingyan is talking nonsense on the verge of death. He wants to drag your son down with him. Your son's loyalty to Imperial father, to Great Zhou, is as steadfast as the sun and moon can bear witness. Please, Imperial father, see the truth clearly. The Emperor looked at the Crown Prince kneeling on the ground, then glanced at the frenzied Xiao Jingyan, a complicated emotion flashing through his eyes. He was silent for a long while before slowly speaking. Crown Prince, get up. Father Emperor, I said, get up. The Emperor's tone left no room for argument. The Crown Prince gritted their teeth and slowly stood up. The Emperor looked at them and said, word by word, whether what Xiao Jingyan said is true or false, we will investigate thoroughly. But until things are made clear, you will return to the Eastern Palace for now and reflect on your mistakes behind closed doors. All affairs of the Eastern Palace will be temporarily handled by the Empress on your behalf. These words were no different from placing the Crown Prince under house arrest in all but name. The Crown Prince's face instantly turned deathly pale. Father Emperor, your child is truly being wronged. Enough. The Emperor slammed his hand hard against the Imperial desk. Did you not hear what we said? Get out of our sight. The Crown Prince trembled all over and in the end could only bow their head and back out of the Imperial study, looking back with every step. After they left, the Emperor let out a long, heavy sigh, and the whole person seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. He looked at me and my father, then waved his hand. You too, take your leave as well. Yes, after my father and I paid our respects, we slowly backed out of the Imperial study. Only when I walked out of the palace gate did I finally let out a long breath of relief. My father looked at me, his eyes full of warmth and pride. Rororo, you did very well. I smiled. This is only just the beginning. Father, what comes next? That is where the real show starts. That very night, word spread through the capital city. The Crown Prince had been placed under house arrest in the Eastern Palace by His Majesty, confined to reflect on his mistakes, Yong'an Marquis Xiao Jingyan, for embezzling military pay and colluding with the heir apparent, was thrown into the heavenly prison to await sentencing. The entire capital city was shaken. Countless people were speculating. Had the Crown Prince truly been in league with the Xiao family? Would His Majesty depose the Crown Prince? And yet, caught in the middle of this storm, our Shen family not only came away untouched, but actually earned praise from the entire court for putting justice above family and exposing treacherous officials. Father's reputation reached heights it had never seen before. But I knew all of this was just the surface. The real fight had only just begun. The Crown Prince wouldn't just sit there and wait to die. He would strike back, and when he did, it would be like a thunderbolt. Sure enough, 3 days later, word came out of the Eastern Palace. The Crown Prince was hosting a banquet at the Eastern Palace, inviting key ministers of the court to clear his name. And among those invited, plain as day, was my father Shen Kongan. This was a Hongmen banquet. Father stared at that invitation for a long, long time without saying a word. What do you think? Should I go? I looked at father and gave a firm nod. Go, not just go, but go with your head held high. Father, what are you afraid of? A clear conscience fears no accusation. Besides, if the Crown Prince truly dares to do you harm in the Eastern Palace, he'd be digging his own grave. Father listened, then smiled. All right, then I'll go meet him and see what other tricks this heir apparent has up his sleeve. The Eastern Palace banquet was held in the Crown Prince's study, the Chongwen Hall. It was a place of deep symbolic significance. Chongwen Hall was where the Crown Prince handled state affairs and received officials. It represented the heir apparent's authority and standing. Hosting a banquet here, the Crown Prince's intent was plain as day. He was telling everyone that he was still the Crown Prince, still the future emperor, and that anyone who wanted to bring him down was no better than a mantis trying to stop a chariot, hopelessly overestimating themselves. Father changed into his court robes and headed to the Eastern Palace with me by his side. Strictly speaking, an unmarried woman like me had no business attending this kind of banquet. But father insisted on bringing me along. He said, Rororo, you are the key to this whole game. I won't feel at ease if you don't come. I understood what father meant. He was afraid the Crown Prince might move against him at the banquet, and I was his last line of insurance. After all, I was the Empress's niece, a county princess. No matter how reckless the Crown Prince got, he wouldn't dare lay a hand on father right in front of me. By the time we arrived at the Eastern Palace, quite a few officials were already there. They gathered in twos and threes, talking in low voices. And when they saw me and my father, they came forward one after another to pay their respects. Father returned each greeting in turn, a gentle smile on his face, without the slightest trace of tension. Before long, the Crown Prince appeared. He was dressed today in a moon-white robe, a jade crown on his head, his features handsome and his bearing exceptional. Only those eyes of his carried a few more shades of darkness than usual. My lords, I am deeply grateful that you have all graced the Eastern Palace with your presence today. The Crown Prince stood in the hall and spoke in a clear, carrying voice. Of late, there has been no shortage of criticism directed at me from outside. The reason I have arranged this banquet today is to explain myself to you all in person. I am innocent. My loyalty to the Emperor and to Great Zhou is absolute, without the slightest wavering. What Xiao Jingyan said is nothing but slander. He wanted to drag me down with him before his death. I trust that all of you, my lords, are men of clear sight and will not be deceived by the lies of a petty schemer. When he finished, his gaze swept across everyone present and finally came to rest on my father. Chief Grand Secretary Shen, wouldn't you agree? Father's expression didn't change. He gave a mild smile. His Highness the Crown Prince speaks most wisely. The pure will always be pure, and the tainted will always be tainted. As long as your Highness conducts himself with integrity, there is naturally nothing to fear from idle gossip. The Crown Prince caught the deeper meaning in father's words, and his expression darkened ever so slightly. Chief Minister Shen, I've heard that the wooden tablet inscribed with Crown Prince was offered up by your daughter. Yes, father admitted without hesitation. Then I'd like to ask your daughter, where did she get this tablet from, and how did she determine that this tablet has anything to do with me? The Crown Prince pressed forward step by step, clearly trying to find a weak point to exploit from me. I stepped forward and said calmly, neither servile nor overbearing, in reply to your Highness the Crown Prince, this wooden tablet was found among the belongings left behind by Shan Tong of Jiangnan, by people in this subject's daughter's service. As for how it was determined to be related to your Highness, this subject's daughter made no such determination. This subject's daughter merely presented the tablet to His Majesty to let His Majesty decide. Oh, so what you are saying is, you were just the messenger, is that right? The Crown Prince let out a cold laugh. But how is it that I heard it was you in the Imperial study right in front of the Emperor, who said I was colluding with the Shao family? My heart tightened, but I kept my expression perfectly composed. This subject's daughter only stated the facts and made no presumptuous assumptions. If I have given any offense, I ask your Highness to please forgive me. Forgive you. The Crown Prince's voice suddenly turned ice cold. Shenru, do you know? This stating of facts of yours nearly ruined me beyond all redemption. Tell me, how exactly am I supposed to forgive you? His words had barely fallen when, outside the hall, a sudden commotion broke out. Right after, a clear and bright voice rang out. Crown Prince, what you said is simply wrong. Miss Shen only reported to His Majesty what she knew. Truthfully, that is a subject's duty. Is Your Highness saying that when a subject finds something suspicious, they can't even report it? That they should just turn a blind eye and let villains run wild? Everyone turned their heads toward the direction the voice came from. The second prince, Zhao Sergio, walked in slowly, dressed in a blue robe. His face carried a warm, gentle smile, but his eyes were sharp as a blade. Second brother, why are you here? The Crown Prince's expression grew even more unpleasant. Elder brother is hosting a banquet at the Eastern Palace and inviting all the officials. How could you leave out this little brother of yours? Zhao Sergio walked up to the Crown Prince with a smile and cupped his hands in greeting. Elder brother, I showed up uninvited. You won't hold it against me, will you? The Crown Prince gritted his teeth and forced out a smile. Of course not. Having second brother here, I couldn't be happier. Good. Zhao Sergio smiled and turned to face the officials present. Gentlemen, today is a banquet, so let's all enjoy ourselves. Why let some baseless nonsense sour the mood? Come everyone, sit down. His words were light and easy, yet they cleverly diffused the tense standoff from moments before. The officials all took their seats one after another, and though the Crown Prince's expression was sour, he had no good reason to make another scene. The banquet officially began. Amid the clinking of cups and the buzz of conversation, everything looked cheerful on the surface, but underneath dark currents were stirring. I sat beside my father, staying alert to everything around me. Just then, the Crown Prince suddenly stood up and raised his cup. Everyone, allow me to propose a toast. The guests all rose to their feet, lifting their cups in return. The Crown Prince drained his cup in one go, then let his gaze settle on my father. Chief Minister Shen, allow me to offer you a personal toast. All these years, it is thanks to you assisting the Emperor in managing court affairs. I drink to you. My father stood up as well, raising his cup. Your Highness, the Crown Prince, you flatter me. This is simply my duty. The two exchanged a glance and drained their cups at the same time. The moment my father set his cup down, I suddenly noticed that his expression shifted, ever so slightly. My heart lurched. I leaned close to his ear right away and whispered, Father, what is wrong? Father shook his head and said quietly, It is nothing. The wine might just be a bit strong. But I noticed that fine beads of sweat had already started forming on his forehead. My heart sank straight to the bottom. The wine was poisoned. I snapped my head up and looked toward the Crown Prince. He was watching me with a half smile, a flash of smugness crossing his eyes. Miss Shen, what is the matter? Is your father feeling unwell? I clenched my jaw and forced down the rage burning inside me. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. My father simply can't hold his liquor very well. Oh, then you'd better be careful. This wine was specially prepared by me for Grand Secretary Shen. It is called Drunk to Death in a Dream. After drinking it, one feels like floating on air, as if lost in a dream only. The Crown Prince paused, and a strange smile crept onto their face. Only this wine has an extremely powerful kick. If the antidote isn't administered in time, I am afraid they won't ever wake up. The moment those words landed, everyone present changed color. Crown Prince, how dare you? Zhao Sergio shot to his feet, glaring daggers at the Crown Prince. You actually dare to poison the Grand Secretary right here in the Eastern Palace, in front of all the officials. Are you trying to start a rebellion? The Crown Prince let out a cold laugh. Rebellion, second brother. Those are some pretty heavy words. I just want Grand Secretary Shen to get a good night's sleep. That is all. After all, he has been racking his brain these past days trying to bring me down. He must be exhausted. I am showing concern for him. How could you call that poisoning? You? Zhao Sergio trembled with rage. I steadied my father and stared coldly at the Crown Prince. Your Highness, the Crown Prince, so you intend to fight the Shen family to the bitter end. To the bitter end. The Crown Prince laughed wild and unhinged. Shenru, it was you people who came after me first, trying to wipe me out. Since that is how it is, don't blame me for being ruthless. Today your father is as good as dead, and you don't even think about walking out of the Eastern Palace alive. His words had barely fallen when a squad of Imperial guards suddenly surged in from outside the hall, surrounding the entire Chongwen Hall. Leading them was the Crown Prince's most trusted man, the Imperial Guard's commander, Li He. By order of the Crown Prince, no one is permitted to leave Chongwen Hall during today's banquet. Violators will be killed on the spot, Li He said coldly. The ministers present immediately panicked, scrambling to their feet one after another. Crown Prince, what are you trying to do? Your Highness, we are all court officials. You can't treat us like this. Your Highness, please think this through. But the Crown Prince turned a deaf ear, only staring coldly at me and my father. Shen Kong'an, didn't you want to bring me down? Then I'll send you on your way first, let you see for yourself who gets the last laugh. My father's face had already gone deathly pale, the beads of sweat on his forehead growing thicker and thicker. I knew it, the poison had started to take effect. I had to find the antidote as fast as possible, or my father would really die. Right at this critical moment, Zhao Sergio suddenly stepped in front of the Crown Prince and said in a low voice, "Big brother, are you really going to do this? Do you have any idea that by doing this you are digging your own grave? When the Emperor finds out, he will never forgive you." The Emperor, the Crown Prince, let out a cold laugh. Father Emperor has long gone senile. He only listens to slander and favors people like you. In that case, I might as well be a complete villain. Today, I am not only going to kill Shen Kong'an, I am going to kill you too, second brother. Then I'll tell Father Emperor that you two were plotting a rebellion, and I was forced to defend myself. By then, not only will I be innocent, I'll be a hero who put down the revolt. After he said that, he suddenly waved his hand. Li He, do it. Kill Shen Kong'an first, then kill the second prince. Leave no one else alive. Yes, Li He drew his saber and led the Imperial Guards charging forward. Right at that moment, from outside the hall, a burst of hurried footsteps suddenly rang out. Immediately after, an aged yet commanding voice echoed throughout the entire Chongwen Hall. Stop. Everyone froze and turned to look. The Emperor himself was seen walking slowly in, supported by Eunuch Wang. His face was ashen, his entire body radiating a towering fury. Crown Prince, you've got some nerve. The Emperor's appearance was like a thunderbolt striking down on everyone's heads. The Crown Prince's face instantly went deathly pale. He never could have imagined that the Emperor would show up at a time like this. Father Emperor, why have you come? The Crown Prince's voice carried a noticeable tremor. Why have I come? The Emperor let out a cold laugh and walked toward the Crown Prince step by step. If I hadn't come, were you just going to let me watch you kill my chief minister, kill my son, kill a hall full of Imperial officials? Father, your son didn't mean it that way. Didn't mean it that way. His Majesty suddenly swung his hand and slapped the Crown Prince across the face. The slap landed hard. The Crown Prince was knocked clean to the ground, blood trickling from the corner of their mouth. I gave you the position of heir, gave you the Eastern Palace, gave you glory beyond measure. And you? How did you repay me? Colluding with the Xiao family, embezzling military funds, keeping a private army, and now you want to kill high-ranking Imperial officials. Is your heart black? Every word from His Majesty was like a blade twisting hard into the Crown Prince's heart. The Crown Prince knelt on the ground, trembling all over, unable to say a single word. Summon Abe, relay my decree. His Majesty took a deep breath and said in a low, heavy voice, effective immediately, Crown Prince Zhao Chen is deposed and stripped to commoner status, confined to the Eastern Palace, never to be reinstated. All persons within the Eastern Palace are to be dismissed and investigated. Number 31. Investigate to the very end, no leniency whatsoever. With this imperial edict issued, the Crown Prince was finished. They collapsed on the ground, eyes filled with despair and resentment. Father, you can't do this to me. I am your son, your firstborn legitimate son. Firstborn legitimate son. His Majesty looked at them coldly. Our legitimate firstborn son would never collude with treacherous villains, would never embezzle military pay, and would certainly never murder loyal subjects. You are not worthy of being our son. With that, His Majesty turned around and looked at me and my father. Lord Shen, are you all right? Father forced himself to stand, cupped his hands, and said, Thank you for your Majesty's concern. This subject can still hold on. Eunuch Wang, go fetch the Imperial physician at once. Yes, Eunuch Zhuang immediately ran out. Before long, the Imperial physician came rushing in and took my father's pulse. Your Majesty, Grand Chancellor Shen has been poisoned with sweet death. It is an extremely vicious poison. If the antidote is not administered in time, I am afraid. The Imperial physician hadn't finished speaking before His Majesty cut him off. I don't care what methods you use, you must save Lord Shen. If anything happens to him, I will hold you personally responsible. Yes, this old subject will write the prescription right away. The Imperial physician wrote out the prescription with trembling hands and had someone rush off to fill it immediately. I helped my father sit down, and the knot in my chest loosened just a little. With His Majesty here, father should be fine. His Majesty looked at me, a flicker of relief passing through his eyes. Ruro, you did well. If you hadn't uncovered the Crown Prince's plot in time, today's consequences would have been unthinkable. I quickly knelt down. This subject's daughter dares not take credit. It is all thanks to your Majesty's wisdom. Rise. His Majesty helped me up, then looked toward Zhao Sergio. Sergio, you've done well too. If you hadn't notified me in time today, I would have still been kept in the dark. So it was Zhao Sergio who had informed His Majesty. I looked over at Zhao Sergio, and he gave me a slight smile, his eyes full of meaning. I understood in an instant. All of this had been part of his plan. He had long anticipated that the Crown Prince would make a move against my father at the banquet. So he had arranged everything in advance. Even His Majesty had been factored into his calculations. This man's scheming ran so deep, and his methods were so formidable, it was truly chilling. But at the same time, I was glad he was my ally, not my enemy. The news of the Crown Prince's dethronement spread quickly throughout the entire capital city. The whole court was shaken. Countless people were speculating who would be the next Crown Prince, and amid this upheaval, the second Prince, Zhao Sergio, for rendering meritorious service in protecting His Majesty, was granted the title of Prince by His Majesty, given the honorific Prince Heng, and bestowed with a great number of rewards. More importantly, His Majesty issued a decree allowing Zhao Sergio to enter the Grand Council and participate in state affairs. This was undoubtedly an extremely clear signal. His Majesty was considering naming Zhao Sergio as the new Crown Prince. And our Shen family, for exposing treacherous officials and loyally protecting our lord, also received commendation from His Majesty. My father was not only reinstated to his original post, but also given the additional title of Grand Tutor, ranking among the three excellencies, with power that shook the entire court. I was also granted the title of Commandery Princess Joning by His Majesty, with a fief of 3,000 households. For a time, no one could match the prominence of the Shen family. But I know this is just the calm before the storm. The Crown Prince may have fallen, but the forces behind the Crown Prince are still there. The Empress is still there. Those officials who once attached themselves to the Crown Prince are still there. They won't accept defeat so easily. They'll definitely strike back, and we must be fully prepared. This day, Zhao Sergio asked me to meet at a private villa outside the city. This villa was his personal property. Extremely secretive outsiders had no idea it existed. I changed into men's clothing and slipped quietly to the villa. Zhao Sergio was already waiting for me. He wasn't wearing his royal robes today, just a simple plain blue robe, looking gentle and refined, harmless as could be. But I knew this was just his disguise. "Congratulations, Your Highness, on your promotion to Prince," I said with a cupped hand salute. Same to you, same to you." Zhao Sergio smiled and gestured for me to sit. "Rororo, what comes next is the real hard battle. The Crown Prince may have fallen, but the Empress is still here. She won't let this go so easily." "I know," I gave a nod. "So we have to seize this moment and go all out to completely bring down the Empress. Only then can we put this to rest once and for all." "What is your plan?" Zhao Sergio looked at me, a flicker of curiosity crossing his eyes. I reached into my chest and pulled out a letter, handing it to him. "This is the Empress's biggest secret, from my memories of my past life. As long as we can get a hold of this secret, we can make sure she never recovers." Zhao Sergio took the letter, unfolded it, and his expression immediately changed. Is this real?" "Absolutely certain." I looked at him and said, "Word by word." The Empress is not the late Emperor's daughter. She is a fake princess who was secretly swapped out during the palace coup back then, and the real princess died long ago. João Sergio stared at the letter in his hand and said nothing for a long time. The contents of the letter were simply too shocking for the world to bear. If it were true, the entire Imperial family of Great Joe would be shaken by it. Ruroro, where did you learn all this? João Sergio raised his head, his eyes full of shock. I was silent for a moment, and in the end decided to tell him some things from my past life. Your Highness, do you still remember in my past life? Right before I died, you came to visit me in the heavenly prison. João Sergio gave a small nod. I remember, back then you said something to me. You said that if there were a next life, you would surely keep me safe. I looked at him, a flicker of complicated emotion passing through my eyes. At the time I thought it was just a few words of comfort, but now I understand you already knew some of the truth back then, didn't you? João Sergio fell silent. After a long while, he finally spoke slowly. That is right. In my past life, after I ascended the throne, I secretly investigated the palace coup from back then. I uncovered some secrets that no one else knew. Among them was the truth about the Empress's origins. He paused, then continued. Back then, when the late Emperor passed away, the Empress Dowager assumed regency. But the Empress Dowager's health was poor, so the real power over court affairs was actually in the Empress's hands. Using her status as the late Emperor's legitimate daughter, she held the Son of Heaven hostage to command the lords, playing the entire Imperial court like a puppet. I thought it was strange at the time the Empress may have been the late Emperor's daughter, but she was still a woman, by all rights. She shouldn't have had that much power. Later, when I dug into it, I found out that the Empress's background had a problem. During the palace coup back then, when the late Emperor died, the real princess, the one who is now the Empress, had actually already died. But to hold on to her own position, the Empress Dowager found a palace maid who looked similar and had her impersonate the princess. That palace maid is the current Empress, and this secret was only known to the Empress Dowager and a few of her trusted confidants. But as time went on, those who knew were silenced by the Empress Dowager one by one. In the end, the only one left who knew the truth was the Empress Dowager herself. In my past life, by the time I ascended the throne, the Empress Dowager had already passed away. I did manage to dig up some clues, but I never found solid evidence, so I could only bury that secret deep in my heart. João Sergio finished speaking and looked at me. But now, since you already know this secret, that means you must have evidence, right? I gave a small nod. That is right. In my past life, while I was in the heavenly prison, I once came across an old palace maid. Right before she died, she told me this secret and gave me something. I reached into my chest and took out a jade pendant. This jade pendant was given to me by that old palace maid from my past life. On the jade pendant, there is a character Shen carved into it, along with a phoenix pattern. This belonged to the real princess, my Shen family's aunt. It was her personal keepsake back then. During the palace coup, she was murdered, and this jade pendant was taken by the killer. But what the killer never expected was that the pendant eventually ended up in the hands of that old palace maid. She hid it away and only handed it to me right before she died. I handed the jade pendant to João Sergio. This jade pendant is the evidence. As long as we can prove that the current Empress is not the real princess, everything she has will crumble to nothing. João Sergio took the jade pendant and examined it carefully. On the back of the jade pendant, a line of small characters was carved. Shen family's legitimate daughter, a phoenix cry that shakes the 9 heavens. This was the exclusive mark of the Shen family's legitimate daughter. Only the legitimate daughters of the Shen family were entitled to wear such a jade pendant. Ruroro, this jade pendant is indeed evidence, but I am afraid just this one pendant alone isn't enough. We need more evidence to completely bring down the Empress. João Sergio said after a moment of thought. I know, I nodded. So we need to find someone who knew the truth back then. Most of them were silenced, but I remember there is still one person who survived. Who? Lin Yuan, the commander of the guards responsible for protecting the princess's chambers during the palace coup. I said word by word. In my past life, while I was in the heavenly prison, an old palace maid told me that Lin Yuan had personally witnessed the entire process of the princess being murdered. But to save his own life, he chose to stay silent, and afterward was exiled to the frontier by the Empress Dowager. So many years have passed, he should still be alive. As long as we can find him and have him testify, combined with this jade pendant, it'll be enough to bring down the Empress. After Zhao Sergio finished listening, a sharp gleam flickered in his eyes. All right, then we'll go to the frontier and find Lin Yuan. The frontier was the most desolate and most dangerous place in all of Great Zhou. War had ravaged this land for years, leaving the people with no way to live. But to find Lin Yuan, to bring down the Empress, Zhao Sergio and I still decided to go there ourselves. We disguised ourselves and, posing as merchants, slipped into a caravan heading for the frontier. Along the way, we slept out in the open and endured every kind of hardship. Finally, half a month later, we arrived at Yanmen Pass, a major stronghold on the frontier. Yanmen Pass was the northern gateway of Great Zhou and the first line of defense against foreign enemies. 100,000 troops were stationed here, commanded by General Li He, the pacifier of the north, and Lin Yuan was among those troops. Serving as a lowly centurion, we asked around and found out where Lin Yuan lived, then quietly made our way over. It was a run-down mud hut, sitting at the very edge of the military camp. We knocked on the door. "Who is there?" An aged and wary voice came from inside. "General Lin, we're here to find you," Zhao Sergio said in a low, steady voice. "I am no general. I am just a centurion. You've got the wrong person. General Lin, we know what happened back then. We're here to help you." I picked up the thread and said softly. There was a moment of silence inside, and then the door slowly opened. An old man with greying hair and a weathered face appeared before us. He looked at us warily, his eyes full of suspicion. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" "General Lin, let's talk inside," Zhao Sergio said. Lin Yuan hesitated for a moment, but in the end stepped aside and let us in. The room was bare to the bone, just a bed, a table and a few chairs. Once we sat down, Zhao Sergio got straight to the point. "General Lin, we're here to ask you about the palace coup back then." Lin Yuan's expression changed in an instant. "I don't know what you are talking about. General Lin, there is no need to hide it. We know you witnessed the whole thing when the princess was killed. We also know that the current empress is a fake." I took out the jade pendant and set it on the table. "This jade pendant, you recognize it, don't you?" Lin Yuan saw the jade pendant and his whole body jolted, a flicker of complicated emotions crossing his eyes. This is the princess's jade pendant. Where did you get this?" "An old palace maid gave it to me. Right before she died, she told me the truth." I looked at Lin Yuan and said, word by word, "General Lin, you've been silent for so many years. Don't you want to get justice for the princess? Don't you want the truth to come out?" Lin Yuan fell silent. He stared at the jade pendant, his eyes filled with pain and conflict. After a long while, he finally spoke slowly, his voice hoarse. "You are right. I did witness the whole thing, the princess being killed. That night, I'll never forget it for as long as I live." He closed his eyes and sank into the memory. It was a winter night. 20 years ago, a rebellion suddenly broke out in the palace and the late emperor passed away. I was ordered to guard the princess's chambers and keep her safe. But I never expected the Empress Dowager to send people to kill her. I wanted to fight back, but there were too many of the Empress Dowager's men. I was no match for them at all. I could only stand there and watch as the princess was run through with a sword. Then her people brought in a palace maid who looked just like her to take the princess's place. The Empress Dowager threatened me if I breathed a single word, she'd kill my whole family. To save my own life, I had no choice but to stay silent afterward. She had me exiled to the frontier so I could never return to Capital City. When Lin Yuan finished, tears streamed down his weathered face. "All these years I've lived every single day drowning in guilt and pain. I've let down the princess, let down the Shen family, let down the trust the late emperor placed in me." I exchanged a glance with Zhao Sergio, and we both felt a weight lift off our chests. With Lin Yuan's testimony, plus this jade pendant, we have ironclad evidence to bring down the Empress. "General Lin, are you willing to come back to Capital City with us and expose the Empress in person?" Zhao Sergio asked. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment, then gave a firm nod. I am willing all these years. I've had enough. Even if it costs me my life. I want the truth out in the open. I want justice for the princess. We took Lin Yuan with us and left Yanmen Pass in the dead of night, setting off on the road back to the capital. But what we didn't expect was that our movements had already been tracked. That night, while we were resting at an inn, we were suddenly attacked. A group of men in black, blades in hand, burst into our room. Kill them all, leave no one alive. The lead man in black gave the order in a cold, flat voice. Zhao Sergio immediately drew his sword and stepped in front of me and Lin Yuan. Ruro, take General Lin and go first. I'll cover the rear. No, I am not leaving you behind. I pulled out the dagger I always carried on me. My past life's experiences had taught me some self-defense skills. Nothing fancy, but enough to handle a few assassins. A fierce fight broke out right then and there. Zhao Sergio's martial skills were exceptional with just himself and his sword. He held off more than a dozen men in black, and I, protecting Lin Yuan, fought while falling back. Just as we were about to break through, one of the men in black suddenly lunged out from the shadows and thrust his sword straight at Lin Yuan. Watch out. I let out a loud cry and threw myself in front of Lin Yuan. That sword thrust drove hard into my shoulder. The searing pain nearly made me black out. Ruro, Zhao Sergio saw what happened, and a flash of madness crossed his eyes. He cut down the man in black in front of him with one stroke, then rushed to my side and pulled me into his arms. Ruro, are you okay? Don't scare me like that. I am fine. I forced myself to hold back the pain and said weakly, Quick, get General Lin out of here. We can't let anything happen to him. Zhao Sergio gritted his teeth, picked me up and said to Lin Yuan, General Lin, stay close to me. He carried me along with Lin Yuan and burst out of the inn. Behind us, those men in black gave chase without letting up. Just as we were about to be caught, a group of people suddenly appeared ahead. Leading them was my father, Shen Kongan, Ruro. Father saw that I was hurt and pain and fury flashed through his eyes. Men, kill these assassins for me. The Shen family guards immediately charged forward and clashed with those men in black. Before long, every last one of those men in black was cut down. Father rushed to my side, looked at the wound on my shoulder, and was so heartbroken he was nearly in tears. Ruro, how could you be so reckless? Why did you use your body to block a sword? Dad, I am fine. General Lin can't get hurt. He is the key to bringing down the Empress, I said weakly. Father glanced at Lin Yuan, then said to Zhao Sergio, Prince Sergio, let's head back to capital city quickly. We can't afford any more delays. All right. Zhao Sergio gave a nod. We rushed back to capital city through the night. 3 days later, in the Imperial court, the Empress sat upright on the dragon throne. Civil and military officials lined up on both sides. The Empress was there too, seated beside the Emperor, a graceful and regal smile on her face. But when she saw me and Zhao Sergio walking into the hall with Lin Yuan, that smile instantly froze. Your Majesty, I have a matter to report. Zhao Sergio stepped forward and declared in a clear, loud voice. Prince Sergio, what is it? I wish to impeach Her Majesty the Empress for impersonating a princess and deceiving the Emperor. The moment those words came out, the entire court erupted in an uproar. The Empress shot to her feet, her face drained of color. Zhao Sergio, you are making wild accusations. Whether they're wild accusations or not, an investigation will tell. Zhao Sergio let out a cold laugh, then turned to Lin Yuan. General Lin, please tell His Majesty the truth of what happened back then. Lin Yuan stepped forward, dropped to his knees, and laid out the truth of the palace coup from all those years ago, every single detail. Every word he spoke was like a blade twisting hard at the Empress's heart. You are lying, you are making it all up. The Empress screamed frantically. But I took out that jade pendant and presented it to the Emperor. Your Majesty, this is the real princess's personal belongings specifically, a keepsake of my Shen family's aunt. It bears the exclusive mark of the Shen family's legitimate daughter. If Her Majesty the Empress truly is the princess, she should also have this mark on her. Your Majesty may as well have someone verify it. His Majesty took the jade pendant, his expression growing darker and darker. He looked at the Empress and said in a low voice, Empress, do you have anything to say? The Empress opened her mouth. only to find she couldn't get a single word out, because she knew she simply didn't have that mark on her body. Samanu, check her body. His Majesty gave the order. Shortly after, the palace maids took the Empress away. In no time, a palace maid came back to report, Your Majesty, Her Majesty, the Empress does not have the Shen family legitimate daughter's mark on her body. Those words sealed the Empress's fate. His Majesty closed his eyes and let out a long, deep sigh. Samana, send the Empress to the cold palace, confined for life. Investigate all those involved in this case and punish every last one of them without mercy. Yes, the Empress was dragged away, crying and screaming the whole way, but it was no use. After the Empress was deposed, the entire court was shaken. The Empress Dowager, for her crimes from back then, was ordered by His Majesty to take her own life with a white silk cord. The officials who had attached themselves to the Empress were also dealt with one by one. As for Zhao Sergio, for his merit in exposing the Empress, His Majesty officially installed him as Crown Prince. Father continued to serve as Chief Minister, assisting the Crown Prince in governing state affairs. As for me, the wound on my shoulder took 3 months to fully heal. One day, Zhao Sergio came to the Shen residence to ask my father for my hand in marriage. Grand Preceptor Shen, I wish to take Ruoru as my crown princess. I ask that you grant this. Father looked at Zhao Sergio, then glanced over at me and nodded with a smile. Ruoru, are you willing? I looked at Zhao Sergio, thinking back on everything from my past life and this one. My heart a tangle of emotions. But in the end, I still nodded. Your daughter is willing. Half a year later, Zhao Sergio and I were wed. On the day of the wedding, the capital city was packed with people, everyone coming out to witness this grand ceremony. I wore the phoenix coronet and red robe, sitting inside the bridal sedan. Yet my heart was utterly calm. The grudges from my past life had already been settled. The regrets from my past life had already been made right. In this life, I could finally live, truly live, just once. The bridal sedan stopped at the entrance of the Eastern Palace. Zhao Sergio personally lifted the curtain and carried me out. Ruoru, from this day forward, I will protect you for the rest of your life, and never let you suffer even the slightest grievance, he said softly into my ear. I looked at him and smiled. Okay. Many years later, Zhao Sergio ascended the throne as emperor, and I became the empress. Father retired from office and returned to his hometown, enjoying his twilight years in peace. And Zhao Sergio and I, hand in hand, governed the realm together, ushering in the most prosperous golden age Great Zhou had ever seen. The historical records state, Emperor Heng reigned for 30 years. The nation prospered and the people lived in peace. All under heaven was tranquil. Empress Shen was virtuous and gracious, a model for all mothers in the realm. The emperor and empress shared a deep and devoted love, a tale passed down through the ages. But only I knew that behind all of this lay the blood and tears of a past life, the scheming of this life, and the sacrifices of countless people. But none of that matters anymore. What matters is that I finally became the person I wanted to be. The core game logic of this story comes down to one single line. She was never seeking revenge, she was dismantling a man-eating system layer by layer, then installing herself at the very heart of it. Xiao Jingyan thought he was using her. The crown prince thought he had the whole situation under control. The empress thought her secrets were airtight. Not one of them realized that what they were up against was someone who had come back with the complete script in hand. The information gap is the sharpest weapon in this story. And Shenruo's greatest strength isn't that she knows the answers. It is that she knows when to play her cards and when to wait. Systematic thinking. How this spring-loaded narrative structure is built when I was writing this story. I set one core constraint for myself. Every layer of oppression must be met with a counterattack from a higher dimension. When Xiao Jingyan corners her at the wedding, her counterattack isn't to blow everything up on the spot. It is to enter the palace and take back the power to shape the narrative. When the crown prince sets a trap for her at the Eastern Palace, her counterattack isn't to run. It is to lay the groundwork in advance and let the emperor witness it with his own eyes. The empress's secret seemed airtight. Her counterattack wasn't a head-on confrontation, but tracking down that witness who'd been forgotten on the frontier. That is the essence of a dimensional strike. You make your move on this level. I counter from a higher one. There is another structure I deliberately designed. Every villain's downfall comes from their own systemic flaw, not from the protagonist's luck. Xiao Jingyan lost because he misjudged human nature. The Crown Prince lost because of the fragile alliance he held together with fear. The Empress lost because she assumed time could bury everything, a gamble born of wishful thinking. They didn't lose to Shenrue. They lost to the cracks that had always existed inside their own systems. Shenrue was simply the one who found those cracks, then applied force at exactly the right spot. Finally, about the character Zhao Sergio. He is the only person in this story who is truly on equal footing with Shenrue. Their partnership isn't a strong person taking in a weak one, nor a weak person clinging to a strong one. It is two people equally discarded by the system choosing each other. That is what makes this story the most tender and the most powerful. If you finish this story, and the first question that surfaces in your mind is, at what moment did Shenrue truly decide to trust Zhao Sergio? Then the emotional logic of this story worked, because that moment wasn't when they shook hands, and it wasn't when he saved her. It was when she realized he was also someone who had been systematically erased. When two of the same kind recognize each other, not many words are needed. People who read this story all the way to the end are usually not readers looking for a power fantasy. They're readers looking for logic. You are the people I most want to write for. Follow Maggie Liu. See you next time.